For the prayer. Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in this decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make the decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all of those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Milonazo.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Mayor Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Cirillo.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
9 present.
All right, any moments of silence? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I'd like to offer a moment of silence for Gerald Jerry Barnes II, age 21, lifelong resident of Lowell. Passed away Tuesday in Chelmsford from injuries in a motorcycle accident. He was born February 6, 1997. He was the son of Gerald C. Barnes and Donna Oliver Barnes. He received his education in Lowell schools and was a graduate of Lowell High School, class of 2015. Jerry just completed his junior year at UMass Amherst. He was working towards his bachelor degree in natural resource conservation. He was a great kid, and he'd be sadly missed. Thank you.
Any other moments? All right, please darken the chambers. Thank you. First, I'd like to, we have the minutes of the City Council meeting for June 12th and the Ad hoc Election Laws Subcommittee, June 13th, for acceptance. I need a motion to accept and place on file.
So moved.
Second.
By Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Mr. Leahy, do you have any?
Sure. If we could have a suspension of rules to take up motions 11-3, 11, 11-10, and
11:20.
11-20.
With the approval of the council? Go ahead, Mr. Leahy. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you read-
I'll read,
yeah.
let me read the motions.
Sure, thank
Let
you.
me read the motions, John. One, under Council Leahy, request city manager provide an update regarding installation of pickleball courts throughout the city. Also by Councilor Mercia. 1110, request city manager contact DPW commissioner to investigate whether pickleball can be played on the Shed Park tennis court. Finally, 1120, by myself, Mayor Samaras, request city manager look into the installation of pickleball courts and other activities for senior citizens at Shed Park and other public parks throughout the city. Just need a second by Ms. Councilor Elliott. Thank you. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I don't know if we have speakers or not tonight on this, but just to get an update on this, I think actually Councilor Martin had brought this up a few years ago too, but so this is a new, well, sort of new and upcoming sport, which a lot of people enjoyed today, and it's my understanding that it probably wouldn't be a lot of work to draw these courts on the tennis courts at a few places throughout the city. So put this motion forward to investigate it, see where we are, we might already be in the process of it, and if we're not, if we can see what it takes to put these courts up throughout the city. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion presented its way to us by a person who is very active in the community, who thought this would be a great game for everyone, especially our seniors. And since I am one, and I admire this person, I present this motion on her behalf. I thought, though, what is pickleball? So here is what I learned. Pickleball is a paddle sport similar to a racket sport that combines elements of badminton, tennis, and table tennis. 2, 3, or 4 players use solid paddles made of wood or composite material to hit a perforated ball similar to a wiffle ball over a net. So we could say pickleball is a cross between ping pong and tennis. Just think of it as playing ping pong, but standing on the table. But of course, we are standing on a tennis court. The good paddle weighs between 7 and 8 ounces, and it is a bit bigger than a ping pong paddle, but smaller than a tennis racket. The ball is basically a wiffle ball and doesn't bounce high. The net is 34 inches to the middle, while the tennis net is 36 inches to the middle. There are many residents in the city who have since expressed a clear interest in learning more about this new arena of sports activity. Pickleball is clearly a great way to stay in shape and have fun. This motion allows us to explore this further, and the motto here is keep Lowell healthy. So I think this has potential. We have the Commissioner of Parks, DPW Commissioner, cemeteries, you name it, he's here, Jim Donison. Maybe we could refer this to the Parks Subcommittee and we could take a look at it further. Right, Jim? Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
If I'm allowed also from the podium, when you talk about pickleball, it's, I guess, one of the fastest growing sports in the country right now. There's 2.5 million people that are playing that, but it's being played in elementary, middle schools, high schools, and it's also a great favorite amongst the seniors. And actually, if you look at that, I mean, our parks are set for the young, and but there's really very few activities at our parks for senior citizens except for walking. So I think, Madam Manager, this would be a good project to look at. You're talking about a court that's the size of a badminton court, 20 by 44 feet. It can be handled indoors, so maybe we can look at the senior center also as a possibility of doing something there. But I think it's something that we should be doing in the city to make sure that whatever we do, it's inclusive for all of our citizens, and I think this is a good idea. Anybody else want to? Okay, Madam Manager? I'm sorry, Mr. Milanazzo.
Thank you. The 3 motions are obviously good motions. Chronicle had a piece on pickleball just the other night, and it's really quite remarkable how quickly it is growing. And people who winter in Florida and play down there, when they come back up to Massachusetts and to the Northeast, are looking for communities, and I know Somerville and some other communities have really taken it on as a cause. So I think Lowell, again, as Councilor Mercia said, it's about health too for some of our seniors. So I think it's a good motion and one we should certainly explore. And I would encourage you to look at the Chronicle piece because it was really quite well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor, Madam Manager?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. These are good motions, and I think Commissioner Donison is already out on the hunt, looking around the city, and we'll bring a report to the Parks Subcommittee so that the subcommittee can deal with the findings. And it was something that came before the council a few years ago, my understanding, and I think Recreation did purchase some equipment and did some experimenting, but we'll get you the full report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Councilor Leahy's right. I know this was up a number of years ago, and I believe it was supported unanimously. Is it possible to start just convert the courts that we have rather than
We will look into it. There's a different sizing, but I know the commissioner's taking a look at that. And when it was experimented, and I wasn't here, but we'll find out from Mr. Fataconti, I think they were using regular-sized tennis courts as an experiment, but we can get you that information.
Counselor Elliott, you all set?
Do
ahead.
you have a follow-up to that on exactly how we can make
Yes,
this
a
happen?
quick follow-up to that. I contacted a company called Vermont Recreation and Tennis, who does a lot of tennis court rehabilitation work. And what they've done on certain courts is they've actually just gone and they've gone to a tennis court and put different colored lines on it. So in the city, we have about 20 tennis courts, and they estimated about $300 to $400 per court. So it could be something as simple as that. It may confuse some of the tennis players, so we'll get a full report.
Okay. No, I know my in-laws, they go to Florida in the wintertime, and that's exactly what they did. They converted a tennis court, and it's quite popular. So.
Yeah, it can work.
Thank you. Ms. Conway, Councilor Conway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to answer the question from Councilor Elliott, it's approximately twice the size of tennis courts, so you could fit two of these courts into, at least two of them could be, actually four. I'm sorry, 4 courts could go into one. That's my understanding. The only thing I would be a little concerned on was how the striping would take place. Because again, it could confuse a lot of tennis players too. And granted, I think this is a great idea, but you also have over 1 billion tennis players in that play the sport. So you got to keep that in mind. And the other, and I don't know how this plays into the picture, but if you go out to Shed Park, you'll see LHS on all those courts. So I don't know what type of territorial situation Lowell High School has in regards to those courts. It's just something to keep in mind when you're bringing the report forward. Thank you.
And just add, Madam Manager, there are many schoolyards with good hot top areas in the schools, and maybe that's a possibility, especially for the summer, because most of those schools will be closed, and that could be a possibility.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilor
I
Elliott.
wonder if we could get Nancy Donahue to come up and say a few words.
I'm a very young pickleball player. Yeah, I play in Florida, and to answer your question, and I play at the Y here, indoors, and at the Y, we're on wood, and we have basketball lines, and we have volleyball lines, and we have pickleball lines. And everyone knows their line. If you're green, you're pickleball. If you're red, you're something else. So, and we do the same thing in Florida, where the tennis players didn't really like to have pickleball come, but they just put down actually like blue tape for a while. Have you seen that? And then in other courts, they painted lines on the tennis courts. And everyone plays, and we all get along fine. But it's a great game. I can play with a teenager. I can play with Rodney. I can play with 2 guys and against 2 guys. I mean, it's all mixed up. And the beauty is you don't have to get 4 people to play with you like tennis or golf or anything. You just go to the court, who's ever there plays, and it's your turn, and then it's my turn, and you lost, or you sit down, and everyone plays. So it's great. Yeah.
Pointed to you.
Well, I played tennis for years, but this is great for old people. But also I tell young people that I play with, I say, you have to do the running. So they say, sure. So they run all around, and I stand there. But I think it would be great for Lowell, because it takes in all ages and all abilities. I mean, I can play with a really good player or a really poor player, and you all have fun. It's just a great, fun game. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I hope we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. All right, not being 7 o'clock, we're going to go to communications from the city manager. The first motion response is continue in support of nonprofits. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And there is an informational response in councilors' packets. I know Chris Samaras from Planning and Development is here to speak to it if the council would like more information. As you recall, we did vote on the action plan a couple of weeks ago, and this details, some of the nonprofits who are benefiting, particularly through the CDBG funding mechanism. So Mr. Samaras is here.
Any questions? Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the managers and actually to Chris Samaras with regard to the first report on continuing support of nonprofit. You item, you show a fiscal year and then you show the current fiscal year. You also itemize CDBG non-public service. What do you consider non-public service?
Non-public service, I like your construction projects. Public service, I like your programs, could be supportive services for anything, like a program at CTI, for example. So that's the difference, is that we have 15% of our funds each year allocated for public service program, and we budget as much as we can towards non-public service projects, towards the Hamilton Canal, towards any construction of a project on the steps, like ADA compliance projects or something like that.
So with all this non-public service and the public service, the total grant of how much do we receive from?
Well, this year it was our first increase in 6 years. This year we received close to $2 million in CDBG funds this year. And we allocated $350,000 goes towards senior center, $250,000 goes towards the Hamilton Canal, projects like that. Those are non-public service projects.
Thank you. I commended what you do, really, particularly the Citizen Advisory Committee, whose volunteers who are part of making selection after, a long process, and was able to spread the funding and look at the funding from various organizations. It's just remarkable that just about every nonprofit and profit organization and non-public service organizations receive some grant.
Yeah, I agree. They do a really good job trying to spread the money around as best they can.
So the Citizen Advisory Committee, do you do the selection every year, or do they apply? How's the process?
It is the 9 members that we had this year were on the board last year, and they re-upped their membership or their with the board for 1 more year because they enjoy what they do. So when we do look for members, we do post a notice in the Lowell Sun. We post a notice on the website looking for members. And it's a HUD requires a 7 to 9 member board, and we had 9 members the last 2 years, so it's been a full board. It's been a diverse board as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Career Center nonprofit addiction recovery efforts.
Yeah,
Excuse me, before I begin, everybody's welcome into these chambers, but the thing is, those signs are large and blocking people's views. That's unacceptable. So I'd prefer that the signs are put down, and you're welcome to speak on an issue, but I want that sign down. I'm requesting that the sign be down so people can enjoy this meeting, speak on the issues, and be allowed to. Officer, I want the sign out. Sign's out. You're blocking people if you're in the back. That's unacceptable. So all we're asking, you can speak on the issue. This is not a debate. minutes for 10-minute recess.
Do you want to clear the chambers?
Yeah. I'd like a motion for a 10-minute recess.
Seconded.
Leahy, seconded by 10 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing, people have a right to express their thoughts. This is a regular meeting. We have a number of issues on our agenda, and everyone is really free to speak. But the thing is, if people are bringing in signs that are so large it's going to block people's view, obstruct people's view, create an issue, it's unacceptable. So we'll go on now with the regular meeting. So we're at Career Center Nonprofit Addiction Recovery Effort. Madam Manager?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Again, there was information in the packet, particularly regarding how the Career Center and local nonprofits are aiding in addiction recovery, and that details some of the initiatives and partnerships that the city is supporting. Shannon Norton, from the Executive Director of the Career Center, is here to answer questions or explain anything to the council if the council desires.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the managers and the directors of the Lowell Career Center, Shannon Norton. First of all, I just wanted to congratulate the partnership and the success that your office has make thus far. And I also noticed that some challenging as well with regard to working with the Lowell House and the Zach House and Megan House. Could you expand on those challenges for us and the viewer,
Sure.
Ms. Norton?
Sure. So we do work with both organizations. The challenges for this population, transportation, it's a big issue in terms of getting people employed, and also if they have a criminal record. So one of the things we met today with a whole group of people, including Lowell House and Megan's House, because we were applying for a national dislocated worker grant. We were one of 2 workforce areas selected to participate. So this is very exciting because this would help us tremendously, because then we can have dedicated staff to work with employers to educate them on and encourage them to hire people who are in recovery, but also to train people to become peer recovery coaches, which everyone has indicated to us is desperately needed. The idea would be that everyone that's going through a program, a sober program, would be attached to a peer recovery coach, and that we would encourage people who are 2 years out of sobriety into sobriety to become a peer recovery coach, and the Career Center would subsidize their wages for 6 months while they're becoming a peer recovery coach. And so we had lots and lots of ideas. So now this grant has to go to Washington, and Washington will select 5 or 7 states to partner with. So hopefully we'll get that. But regardless, we'll work with any of our partners that need help. And one thing I heard repeatedly when talking with people from these organizations is that employment is so important when you're in recovery, so that people do not relapse and go back into their bad habits and what have you. So it's a wonderful working relationship we have with them.
I want to congratulate you and the manager office for being selected as part of this grant. One of the 2 cities in the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. I know the second 2 is Springfield. Mm-hmm. This is really addressed the issues at heart, the opiate crisis,
Yeah.
and in not in the city, but in this country. So with the, I believe was it $5 million for 2 years split between Springfield?
Two cities, yeah.
So with the money, would that money address some of the issue or some of the challenge that you spoke of earlier in terms of transportation?
Only 10% of it can be towards direct career services or training. So unfortunately, there's always limited funds for these. It's a real challenge across all populations that we work with that don't have reliable transportation. It's an issue that the Commonwealth is really struggling with, the public transportation infrastructure.
So a lot of job that you located for a lot of the people who just came out of recovery, are they outside of Lowell? That mean that it's difficult for them to
Right. Sometimes they need to have transportation in order to do their job, or they're located off public transportation routes, or a lot of times the hours don't match up.
Really?
That's what it is.
It's a daunting challenge. Thank you very much for the report, Ms. Norton.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Shannon, it's very difficult in this respect when someone is addicted and they committed a felony, they robbed or whatever. It's very hard that once they straighten their life out and they're on the straight and narrow, which is very possible, and it's happening quite often, but we're not hearing of the good things that are happening. Yeah. Another roadblock is in their face because sometimes they can't get housing if they have a criminal record. They do a query check and you can't get a job. So right away, because of the addiction that caused them to go out and steal or whatever, they turn their life around and they're, let down again for housing and a job.
Yep.
There's no way around that. Is there a way around that?
There's some instances where you can get your query sealed, but it's after a certain time period, and these tend to be people that might be very recent, so you can't. So the idea would be to find employers and industries that are willing and open to hiring these people and to giving them incentives like that on-the-job training where we'll subsidize the wages up to a certain amount of time. And that encourages employers, well, I'll take a risk. There's also a federal bonding program that will bond employees $5,000 for the first 6 months.
Well, those are good programs.
So these are things that we would work to educate employers.
I really believe people need a break in life, and this is one of those breaks that they need.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Manager, you're all set.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. And as has been noted, this is really important work that the Career Center is partnering with our partners in this area. Treatment is so important, but then jobs and career training to fill the gap once someone has successfully completed a program and is in recovery. Oftentimes it's that gap. Their housing may have fallen off because of their addiction. They can't find a job, and it's a vicious cycle. So that's a really critical part. And we'll continue to look for other funding for transportation. It may just have to patch together from other sources, but we'll continue to look for that.
Thank you. All set? All right, next, temporary closure and repair of canal bridges. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did get a wonderful report from the manager. If I could suspend the rules and bring in my motion at this time, motion 1113, which deals with the Pawtucket Street Bridge over the Northern Canal. I made this motion not knowing we were going to get this report, and it coincides together, so.
Second.
Oh, thank you so much. So the motion says, request the city manager explore possible repairs, improvements to the bridge roadway on Pawtucket Street near UMass Lowell dorms and Father Morissette Boulevard. We have all pretty much attended a game or an event at LaLasha Park, the home of the Spinners, and Joanne and Drew Weber Way, and I'm sure that one time or another we ventured up Pawtucket Street past the UMass Lowell dorms and up to the Pawtucket Street Bridge at the intersection of where Father Morissette Boulevard meets, and we held our breath going over the bridge, didn't we? It was mind-boggling. The bridge is separated by Jersey barriers, but it is in total disrepair, and it was rather scary crossing over it, at least it was for me. It was narrow, I can see it being narrow, but it was such in disrepair. So having seen this in the report that said the bridge will be closed to all vehicular traffic, Pawtucket Street will be converted to temporary two-way traffic from the bridge to Aiken Street to allow for local traffic to access the site, including UMass Lowell campus. Signage including road closed, local traffic only will be installed at the corner of Aiken Street, and detour routes utilizing Aiken and Father Morissette Boulevard are proposed during closure. So I'm asking through you, Mr. Mayor, to Madam Manager, when is the timeline for this? Do we have, and would the bridge be fixed relatively soon, or what's the timeline?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. And Mr. Mayor, through you, Claire Ricker from DPD is here to answer. The timeline is going to roll out in a sequence of bridges, but Claire can address your
Sure.
particular interest as well as the project.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to get that bridge fixed for you very soon. The project is due to kick off in the first week of July. The Pawtucket over Northern Canal Bridge is a complete replacement, which is the reason that it will be closed. The Pawtucket Street Bridge over the Pawtucket Canal is also a complete replacement. However, traffic outbound will be maintained at all times on that bridge. They're getting started, getting ready to drill some rock anchors out at both of those replacement bridges. We'll start there. And that will be the beginning of construction on the Tiger Bridge project.
Could I ask, there's a Jersey barrier in the middle of that bridge, right? Is it there for a reason to narrow it down because it is one way?
So on Pawtucket over Northern, yes, it's currently one-way. Traffic is very limited.
So when you repair that bridge and make it new, we're not going to put a Jersey barrier back, like
No,
what's-
ma'am, it will be a complete replacement. That bridge will be replaced to the cost of roughly $7 million, and it will be open to all traffic upon completion.
And it'll be wider, right?
Yes, it will be open to two-way traffic.
Oh, it'll be open to two-way traffic.
Also with pedestrian amenities on either side. We're maintaining pedestrian access with ADA compliance on that bridge at all times, so the students who live on that side of the canal can get over to North Campus.
Oh, that's good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the managers, to the chief planners, chief design planner, Ms. Recker. Thank you for the report. It's a very detailed report. I just want to hear from you that during this construction, there's no alteration in bus route, right?
No, Counselor, there's not. The only proposed detour that would affect a bus route is at the Pawtucket Street over Pawtucket Canal Bridge. That bus route currently drives the route of the proposed detour, which is outbound on Pawtucket Street, then around through the UMass Lowell campus and back on Broadway. That will be the direction that traffic is routed. You will not be able to come into town on Pawtucket Street inbound. You will be detoured around onto Broadway Street and then back down, I believe it's Walker, back down to Pawtucket.
So the work on this 5 bridge is going to start at the same time, and some with the completion, some just repair, is that correct?
We're finalizing the phasing and construction schedule now. They're going to start on the 2 replacement bridges, which are those Pawtucket Street bridges.
Okay.
There are no other closures proposed. At this point, it looks like they're going to start on the Central Street bridge next construction season. I think next construction season is when we're going to start to see the major work being done. As the construction phasing is proposed right now, we could conceivably work on all 5 bridges at the same time. I think that's still up to the contractor to determine the exact phasing of the project. And we've been in discussions with the contractor and in discussions with MassDOT about what that will look like and about how we will communicate that with the public. I mean, we've made it very, very clear to them that we need to keep the public as up to date as we possibly can on the phasing and the schedule of this project. This project, we have a website, which is lowellbridges.com, that we're working to update, with the most recent information that we have.
Would I also ask that you share this information with the LTC and ask them if they could share with their host, local hosts, so that and also when update information come in, to share with them, so that not only that we can see it on the city website, but also on LTC and also all those local hosts that they then can share with their prospective viewer. So, thank you.
Sorry, Councilor Leahy, Councilor Conway, then Councilor Mercia, then Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you. So I just had a quick question. Did you say there's not a timeline yet for the Northern Canal, or there is?
We have a construction total days at this point, which is roughly 2 years. But what we don't have is yet, exactly the phasing. Like, I couldn't tell you right now today when, say, the Pawtucket Street over the Pawtucket Canal Bridge will be reduced to that one lane of traffic. I mean, we're going to try to keep things as normal as possible for as long as possible, but certainly provide updates when they become available with ample lead time to get the information out.
Okay. The only concern, obviously, on that, with the Northern Canal one is the dorms and everything, so.
Right.
Are you working with Lowell on that too, or?
Yeah, we've been working very closely with UMass Lowell, on this traffic management plan, and we will be keeping the pedestrian access open, so kids will be able to walk over that bridge while construction is going on. They just won't be able to drive over it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Conway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think perhaps at this particular time, it might be appropriate to take my motion up on 11.7, which deals with what we're talking about.
Second by?
Second.
By Councilor Elliott. Go ahead.
Would you read it?
Which one was it? Give me the number again, the
11.7.
11. Scott, request city manager DPD meet with the MassDOT for the purpose of addressing and mitigating the traffic in the city during construction projects on the roads and bridges. Plans to include timetables for completion of municipal projects and presentation of the plan for the public.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's one of the frustrating aspects of a municipality and of the traffic. Everywhere you go, you talk to individuals, and they get frustrated because there's log jams, and it's something you have to keep in mind when we talk about economic development. You have to be able to get your client, you have to be able to get your vendors in to the city in a timely fashion and get them out of the city in a timely fashion. Because the fact is, if you don't, they are not going to do business in the city of Lowell. So traffic, and we've talked about before, parking is extremely important. And I'd like to ask the city manager again to check with the MassDOT and to come up with again a timetable, and we've touched on it here. I think it's so important, very important to the public, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion with it. And as you well know, there are many projects going on. And I think that, and I think Councilor Noon just touched on the fact of getting this information into the hands of the public. And I think what we ought to do should be a multi-faceted approach to that. Perhaps we could have a subcommittee meeting on it and let the people know what's going on. And again, so many other different ways. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to know, Claire, we talked about that Pawtucket over the Northern Canal would be starting the first week in July, did we say? And if you don't have the answer, I understand. We don't know how long it would take. Do we anticipate any timeline as to when it would?
So right now, the construction total days planned for that project is roughly 24 months.
Okay.
to completion. This is the terms of our grant, the entire project needs to be done by 2022. We don't expect it to take nearly that long. Our longest build time is at Central over Pawtucket. It's just under 3 years.
Okay, thank you so
Sure.
much.
All set. Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes. Through Madam Manager to Claire. Claire, I just want to say you're doing a fantastic job. This is no small undertaking, trying to
What time?
build all these bridges at once in Lowell. So I want to say you're doing a great job. And also, I also wanted to mention that all the bridges are going to adhere to our complete streets, correct, with multimodal transportation. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Sure. So while the layout of the bridges, these are footprint bridges, will stay the same because of our Complete Streets policy and certainly the state's involvement. Insofar as is possible on each bridge, there will be bike lanes and there will be improved pedestrian amenities and improved ADA compliance on the bridges, as they're designed.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you. This is a good report, and it's a good motion. And the website does have some pretty good information on it. Has the NTP been awarded yet, the notice to proceed?
Oh, yes, the notice to proceed was awarded beginning of May.
Okay.
It was, the contract has been awarded to MAS Building and Bridge. They did the work at the Lawrence Street Bridge, which, we've been very happy with. I think the engineering department recommended them, and we'll be working in partnership with MassDOT to administer the contract.
So this is for all the bridges, or are you just talking about Northern Canal?
All the bridges,
All the
yes.
bridges awarded to
They will be
one.
doing all five.
And
yes.
they're going to phase, or are they going to begin construction on all 5 at one particular time?
We're still determining, I think, the exact phasing of the project. As designed, we could potentially do all 5 at the same time. The traffic impacts, I detailed in the motion response. We won't have any complete closures minus Pawtucket over Northern. It will certainly impact traffic. It will slow traffic down. It may affect bus schedules, but it will not stop traffic.
Okay, so, but part of the scope of the contract was to develop a plan, transportation management plan.
Correct.
And when do you anticipate rolling that out to?
So we developed the transportation management plan. We had a meeting last fall with first responders, with EMS, with UMass Lowell, and others with the LRTA to take a look at the transportation management plan. It was vetted by all. It looks workable to everybody involved. That's where it was determined that conceivably we could be working on all 5 at the same time. Whether or not that is what the contractor and means and methods decides to do is still to be determined.
Okay. I mean, it's exciting. It's good. It's good news. We have the money. It's in place, and construction's about to begin, and it's going to make traffic and safety a paramount importance in the future. But my concern, and I'm sure everyone's concerned, there's traffic congestion now, and this is just going to exacerbate it. Granted, the students are out, both high school, elementary students, less buses, less college students, and the construction will begin, and then school is going to open, and then I don't know how many more thousands of cars will be, traveling throughout the city. How is that factored into the
Sure. I think
process?
Communication is key. I know talking about, theoretically, we could still move traffic around the city. Like I said, it will be slower. It will definitely be an improvement. In the end, to your point, Councilor, we will have bridges that are not rated any longer for, weight restrictions and things like that. I mean, at this point, I think we're not even sure how we're going to move the steel around the city to do the bridges. The bridges are in such bad shape. So it will be impactful. It will be painful for a time, but in the end, it will be a vast improvement over the network we have now.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure boards are going, boards, the big flash boards are going to be up, and I don't know how we get this information out. Again, I think the greatest impact will be, end of August, when school starts to go back in and the college students are back. So Good news and bad news. Okay, thank you.
Madam Manager, you have sorry, Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Madam Manager. With Nick Bossanetto's absence, did we hire a traffic engineer?
Yes, and she's here this evening. Yes. Natasha Vance. She's already started on some of the reports that you'll hear about.
Oh, good. I think we'd like to meet her over here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple of it. Natasha Vance is our new traffic engineer. She comes to us with a lot of experience in traffic engineering, design, and has hit the ground running. I don't know if you want to say a couple of words, Natasha.
I'm very excited to be here. Lowell has a lot of transportation challenges, and I think it's a really exciting time with the bridges and the Lord Overpass and Thorndike widening. I agree with Claire that the transportation management plan for the Tiger Bridges is manageable. There is going to be an impact on traffic. It will be a little slower for a little while, but it's definitely workable.
All right. Well, we're going to give you a clap. All right.
Thank you.
I like your choice of word challenges, but it means it can
Yeah.
be done. Thank you. Madam Manager, a report?
Thank you. Just quickly, I want to repeat again what's in the memo of the council that has been mentioned tonight, but for the public, lowellbridges.com, for people who want to know what's happening almost on a daily basis. DPD is going to keep updating this, so if people want to know what the construction project is happening as far as those Tiger grant bridges, that's the place to look quickly for information, because it will be maintained. And obviously, some of the other traffic impacts that we're going to have are going to likewise be communicated, and I think that's been mentioned here tonight. We can't put out enough information and communication to the public, and so we're going to use all avenues to do that. Social media, website, LTC. I did have a conversation with Wendy Bloom about trying to put more information at LTC and all of the channels, all of the programs that are happening at LTC. If people can even put some language translation for people across the city. So we are going to be doing that. Just briefly and we'll get a full report to Councilor Conway on his motion concerning all of the transportation challenges coming our way in the next few years. As we know, the bridges are critical and they had to be done. We could have, if we didn't do them, the downtown could be cut off from the city, truthfully, if those bridges all were closed and not able to be traveled. So we're grateful for the federal government's Tiger Grant in the state. Secretary Pollock also came through with money for this project, so it's really very, very important. But we do have other projects, as was mentioned by Claire. The Lord Overpass is also going to be starting perhaps next spring. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Lord Overpass project is due to advertise in the fall. We're at roughly 99% design. We're just finalizing some of the details at this point.
And there are other projects. There's a Route 38 project that is coming on. So to your point, Councilor, we have reached out and will reach out to MassDOT to have a comprehensive presentation to the city and to the council as to how we're going to manage each project, but also those that may be happening simultaneously, which is inevitable given the construction schedules. I did want to also point out to the council, and I believe the council received this into listening public, that the Lowell plan is having a speaker series this Thursday morning, June 28, 2018 at 8 o'clock at the UMass Lowell Innovation Hub at 110 Canal Street. And it will be dealing with the City of Lowell Future's traffic and parking issues. So it's an informational presentation for those who are interested to attend.
Thank you. Councilor Malnazzo?
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, this is all good information, but seeing Chief Winwood here, what's the plan for emergency vehicles in light of all of the construction across the city from the standpoint of the fire apparatus and EMTs and EMS, if I could, Chief?
Thank you. Chief?
Yes, Councilor. I've been working with Claire and with Jim Donison, with the DOT, and with with the new traffic engineer. It is going to be very difficult for us to get around the city, especially in the wintertime when there's snowbanks. Our trucks are very big, so it's going to cause some challenges. And like Claire said, the key is communication. As long as we know every morning which bridges are going to be closed, it'll make life a little bit easier for us. But response time, it may suffer a little bit, but we'll work around it as best as we can. And like Councilor Elliott said, there's good and bad to it. Our trucks are very heavy. They can range from anywhere from 30,000 to 60,000 pounds. So the replacement of these bridges is very important so that we can get around the city. So I think in the long run, it'll be a good thing, and in the short run, there's some challenges for us.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. When we get to 100% with the design on the Lord Overpass, could we get another presentation either before the city council or a subcommittee of the city council? I think that everybody realizes that that's a project that presents incredible challenges. And I think everybody would like to see, before we go forward with it, exactly what is planned and also how it's all going to work.
Excellent motion. And do we know when we expect the 100% design? I mean, very soon, is that?
Very, very soon. Okay. I've seen we have a preliminary traffic management plan for that project that was put together in relation to the Tiger Bridge project, but we should be finalizing documents certainly by the middle of next month, I would say.
So we'll bring it into the council. The presentation is the project and also the traffic mitigation plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Thank you. Next, multifamily inspections. Madam Manager.
Thank you. And again, through you to the Council, there is a report in the packet, and this also is in response to the request on a status report regarding the inspection of multifamily units in accordance with the city ordinance, and the Eric Slagle from the Director of Development Services is here to answer in further detail, but the report goes into detail regarding how often the inspections are done, how many units there are in the city, and so forth. I don't know if the council desires more information than was included in the packet.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, or to Eric, I guess. The report, we passed that ordinance in 2013, and all of the units were supposed to be done within a 3-year period.
Correct. And
you indicate in the report that you divided them up into 1/3, which all makes sense. So we would be in the second cycle at this point.
That's correct.
So when we went through the first cycle, you mentioned that there were some that failed, but were we able to do every unit in the city?
No, we were not. So we've had to shift some of our focus onto enforcement, and that involves threats of fines to recalcitrant property owners, and issuing of those fines. We have issued fines to property owners, and we are kind of in the process of trying to make a determination whether or not we need to take further action to the ones that we haven't strong-armed into getting into the properties, and that would be likely speaking to the law department and seeking some sort of accelerated or enforcement action.
How many people do we have doing these inspections?
Currently, we have 6 health inspectors in the city, a senior health inspector, and 5 regular health inspectors.
But all 6 don't spend their entire day doing inspections.
That is absolutely true. In fact, so that we had those same 6 inspectors prior to this rental ordinance being passed, and they had full-time jobs responding to both landlord-tenant complaints about sanitary code violations in properties and dealing with all the food issues, restaurant inspections throughout the city as well.
So how many man-hours would you estimate that we dedicate to inspection of the multifamily units in a week?
That's a really tough question because it's hard to quantify. At the time that this took place, the council voted a change in the job description to the health inspectors to change their hours from 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week. And the thought process was that would give us an extra 30 hours, 30 staff hours a week to spend to this. I would say that this is a kind of a cyclical thing. So there are times when it's way more than 30 hours a week, and then there are times when it's around or slightly less than 30 hours a week.
Let me just, before I go on, I'm not trying to find fault with anything. I think it's a daunting task to be.
It's a very daunting task.
I just wanted to see how we're doing. So do you think that in a given week, that the amount of man hours that would be dedicated to inspection of the multifamily units would be less than 40 hours?
I think in a given week, that would probably be about I think it's probably around 30, between 30 and 40 hours.
Okay. So when you say we didn't get to, when we went through the first cycle, which was a 3-year period, what percentage did we inspect out of the 13,000 plus units?
Okay, well, so when we started the process, we made an estimation that there were approximately 20,000 rental units in the city.
That's in the report, that there were 19,300 units, that there's 13,000 that are that had to be inspected, and the other 6,300 were units that are in owner-occupied, two families, so they're exempt from the inspection. Right. So of the 13,000, in the 3-year period, how many units did we get to?
I'm gonna estimate, and again, I haven't looked exactly at the numbers, but based on my knowledge of how many inspections I think are still outstanding, I think we probably got to, I want to say probably about 85%.
Okay.
And unfortunately, as we talked about when the council passed this, the problems that we have are the ones that we haven't inspected are likely the ones that are problems, and that's so that's why I think we're going to start looking at accelerated enforcement.
So we're deep into the second cycle.
This is the 3rd year of the second cycle, yes.
Okay. And so when we did the first cycle, we didn't complete them all. And so now we're in the second cycle, and I would make the assumption that we're not going to complete them all this cycle either, right?
I don't think that's likely.
So then, do you think that it would make sense to change the ordinance so that instead of 3 years, it was 4 years, or maybe even 5 years, in order that we could do every single unit? I mean, I guess, Eric, my main question is, what happens to the units that slip through that first cycle, that don't get inspected? Do we go back to them, or do we pick them up in the second cycle, or are they never get inspected? Which would be counter to what was the intent of the ordinance in the first place.
Right, and I think you've kind of grasped what the real crux of the issue is here. When the council wanted to do this work, they wanted to try to capture all of the lowest performing units, and I do think that the inspectors have gotten through to a lot of those units. There's a lot of units that were inspected that had never been inspected in the city before. I think that we contemplated coming back to council and asking for an extension of the time to push it out to 5 years. That would put it in line with the other inspections that I mentioned in here, which are under the state building code, in which multifamilies have to be inspected every 5 years. At this point in time, I think what we need to do is identify the folks who are completely ignoring us and our efforts have not been effective with, and speak to the city solicitor and make a determination as to whether or not we need to simply take them to court and have the housing court order them to begin an inspection.
But we're not doing that right now.
We have not done that yet, no.
Okay, so they're just kind of, every once in a while, and it's anecdotal, but every once in a while I'll hear about somebody that lives in a unit in Lowell, and they'll say, well, the landlord shut my water off. Or they'll have some other complaint about their unit. And I would confidently say last year that the city inspects those units once every 3 years, but I can't say that because that is not the case, right? Those people may live in units that do slip through the cracks, that never get inspected.
Right, and I think that there's another piece to this, which is not it hasn't been our focus because we've been trying to deal with the worst of the worst. But the ordinance speaks to any rental unit, and that includes single families. When we did our proactive mailing, we targeted multifamily units because the single family market is more difficult to determine whether or not a person's a renter or not. Multifamilies, we can assume at least a couple of the units are rented if they're multifamilies. So I think you've correctly identified that there is a challenge out there. Now, if there is a landlord-tenant issue, that doesn't mean that we don't get to inspect the unit, because if we get a report of a landlord-tenant issue, our inspectors go out there regardless of whether or not they've paid for their permit or not. So some unit could be inspected and be being cited by our inspectors for problems without having gotten this permit, because they have to come and pay for this permit, but it doesn't mean our inspector won't go out and inspect the unit if there's a report of a problem.
Probably my last question, of the units that failed, the 800 or so, I think, that failed.
Yes.
Did they ultimately pass? Were they re-inspected? In other words, could I have a 3-family house, my unit fails, and I never pay the $50, and I never get it re-inspected, and it just sort of falls through?
The 800 failed inspections have been, those units have been re-inspected.
Okay.
And once we know that there's a violation, we are in touch with the landlord, and the inspectors are in there as soon as possible to try to get the re-inspection to get those units up to code.
Okay, thank you.
If I may also?
Yes, absolutely, Chief.
So, Council, we also respond to over 15,000 emergencies in the city each year, and we pick up a lot of deficiencies in single multifamilies. We inspect all the houses when they get sold. So we call in the building inspector, the health inspector quite often, and we find fire code violations, health code violations, building code violations. I think that increases the number of violations that we find as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
So, yes, Mr. Mayor, if I
I'm
can-
sorry.
Yeah, I still have the floor. I just have
I'm
a
sorry.
question for the city manager. So I think this ordinance needs to be reworked a little bit, and I think it's not a matter of just more manpower. It's maybe, there's no sense having an ordinance with a 3-year cycle where we're expecting full compliance, and maybe it's just not realistic to expect full compliance. But I think the intent of the ordinance in the first place was to have full compliance. When the ordinance was passed, which was a couple of city managers ago, it was because we were getting a lot of complaints about the units. And so this was the way it was supposed to be fixed. And we're in the, as Eric said, we're deep into the second cycle, and we're at 85% maybe. And maybe Eric's being a little generous with that 85% too. So, but anyways, I would just ask that maybe you take another look at the way we're doing this, and maybe this needs to be tweaked a little bit or extended to 4 years or something like that.
Thank you. We will look at it on two fronts, both the cycles, whether it's 4 or 5 to comply with the state building, but also the acceleration of enforcement maybe needs to be looked at or included some teeth into this so that the inspectional services has some leverage.
Thank you.
All set. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you for the report to the motion and good responses. That's exactly why I filed it. I mean, it was a start. We had lots of problems back in 2013, and it's a good ordinance, and I'm glad I supported and brought it forward. But that being said, you drive through the city and there's lack of compliance. You don't have to go in and out of all of these units. So I think it's important that we continue to be vigilant. I think it's important that senior building inspector has been brought back. That'll increase inspections, and I think we have to go back, not only for compliance, but on a regular basis, because we know that apartments are rented, and then if they're in compliance and they stay for a year or two, and then they go out of compliance. And it's unfortunate. It's absentee landlords, and that's why we brought this forward. So I am glad that we continue to be vigilant, and there is a process. It's a revolving process to continue to go through, because they're getting high rents, sky-high rents, and people living in substandard conditions, and at every level that is wrong, and it's our obligation, as we are, to regularly bring these into compliance, because we know that some landlords won't put a nickel into the place and they'll just continue to collect. So I think this is a good report. Thank you for the information, and I think it's important to move forward. As you mentioned, Madam Manager, put some additional teeth into this so these landlords know that we're serious, we're not going away, and that there's significant repercussions. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All set. Any further discussion on this matter? All right, I'm going to leave communications so we can go to the general public hearings, because it's past 7 o'clock. So we're going to go back to 3.1. We'll conclude after we go through the hearings. We'll come back to communications. So 3.1, ordinance amend Chapter 290 entitled Zoning by extending the existing institutional zoning district to include all of 39 Plymouth Street. I want to open the hearing to anyone who wants to speak in favor of this. In favor.
Mr. Mayor, I am Jim McGoldrick on behalf of Terso Chavez. He's the homeowner. I don't know, you have a full plate up here. I come from Lynn, and thank you for having me up here. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I don't want to give short shrift to my client either.
But the thing, you have basically 5 minutes to speak.
5 minutes, okay. In that case, could I start by handing out a
Yes.
packet to you and to the other council?
Right, otherwise we could be here for 2 days. Yeah, thank you.
This is a matter of, as you said, amending the zoning map.
You have to speak into the mic.
Okay. My client's the owner of 39 Plymouth Street. For in excess of 30 years, it was a lodging house. Due to personal circumstances, his license, Mr. Chavez's license, lapsed in 2004. He would like a new license for that. In order to do that, his property, you'll see a copy of a zoning map at the back of the packet. A large portion of the property is already in the institutional zone. His property, and so what we're asking is to amend the zoning map to classify the entire parcel as institutional. The neighborhood, if you're not familiar with it, in his backyard is the University of Massachusetts. On one side of his property is also in the University of Massachusetts. His street is filled with multifamily homes. Across the street is a fraternity or sorority, I'm not quite sure. There's a property at 9 Mount Hope Street, which is also a fraternity. Amending this zoning map to render the parcel completely institutional would be in character with the neighborhood, and would also benefit not only Lowell in general, but a lot of the occupants of his house in the past, including himself. Mr. Chavez graduated, while he was attending the UMass, he lived there. He lived in the house that he now owns. He graduated, he purchased the house, and he wanted to keep that tradition going. And when it was an active rooming house, staff members lived there, students lived there, faculty members, and one reason that it benefits these students and faculty members is it's affordable. It's a lot more affordable than room and board at the university. You'll see in my handout that the university's room and board is approximately I guess between $13,000 and $14,000 for a school year. Mr. Chavez's rooms, in the event that he's able to reopen his rooming house, right, would be approximately half of that. Granted, food is not included in that, but he has kitchen appliances and so what we have here is, we have a history of this property as a rooming house in excess of 30 years. I wish we had more time because I do have several neighbors and former occupants who would love to speak. Is that not possible tonight?
They can speak.
They may?
They may speak.
Okay. Would you like to come up? Could you identify yourself?
How you doing? My name is Demir, and I'm a president and former living in his house. And I lived there about 2.5 years when I was out in UMass Lowell, and I currently got my bachelor's there this semester. So I'm here to represent him as a good landlord, because compared to other houses I lived around Lowell, he always had hot water, he always had internet. A lot of houses had hard time with electricity, and the landlord having a hard time with the national grid when you're moving in, and he had no issues. Everything was paid. The heat was always through the winter. There was no problem with parking. And like they said, it's way more affordable than any place around here besides the university. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Do you want to come up? Do you want to say anything? Sure.
Yes, my name is Tirso Chavez. I'm the owner of that property there. It has given me a great pleasure to live on that house. I graduated myself from UMass Lowell, and I was a student there, and I see how it's a good, positive thing for people to live together on that type of environment. When I graduated, that was 1990, I believe it was 1992. We had students from all over the world, from China, Japan, and it's a great community. It's a great experience to live with people of that sort, and it brings you kind of together internationally, I believe. And I really, really wish that I could keep doing that. The building passes, it has passed all the inspections. The health department was just there the 5th, I believe. And also the fire department, there's all kinds of sprinkler system, it's all up to date. The fire and smoke detectors are all up to date also. I think that was one of the issues that they were in concern with. I tried to reapply for the license in 2016 and they denied it. And that was the only reason, because the reason was because the house is on the multifamily residential, but the rest of the property is on the institutional zoning, and they told me that it was like a gray area, and they suggested me to do the fully incorporate the institutional zoning on the entire property so that I could be able to renew my permit for that. I wish that you really consider that, and it'll be a great help for the students, especially on the winter because it's so close to the university. It's right behind the nanotechnology building. And especially on the winter, they don't have to walk as much. And I always get a lot of compliments about that property there as far as updating it and keeping up with the inspections. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In the last minute or two, if I'm not over time, can we answer any questions?
We're going to, yes, Councilor Kennedy.
So this is a public hearing, right? So people can just come up and speak pretty freely. Yes. As the way it goes. But I have a couple of questions. One is, how many people live there now?
Just my family at this time. Because they told me that I couldn't have a single person that is not a family member, which to me was kind of weird. If I have my father's friend that wants to go to college and he wants to stay there at this moment, they told me that they could not stay there. Only immediate family members. Okay. And I asked, well, maybe just one or two. Can I have one or two of my father's friend? They told me at this point, until I resolve this.
Actually, please speak into the mic. Because
So just your family lives there. So is the house being utilized as a single-family house then?
Yeah, so right now it's considered a single family.
Okay.
And I've been talking to Mr. Sean, the building commissioner.
Yes.
And he told me what I needed to do to bring it up to date.
Yeah.
And I've been complying with all his requests.
Okay.
And this is yes.
And so you're looking to extend the zoning because you want to put a boarding house there?
Yeah, just keep it the same it was before. I'm not changing anything. I want to keep it the same.
When was it last a boarding house?
The license expired in 2004.
So it has not been a boarding house since that time?
No.
And so if you are successful and you are able to get a license as a boarding house, how many rooms would there be?
There's 12 units. The permit was for 12 units, and I want to keep it the same because I'm living there at the house myself too. And that's the only way that I can keep order on the house. And my daughters are going to be pretty soon going to university there, and I would like them to go there at the university there.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have anybody else speaking in favor? All right. Counselor
Yeah, I just have a
Conway?
quick question here. I don't know who can answer it, but it seems as though it has changed. So why did it change from the boarding house to a single house originally?
Because the license expired.
Could I answer that?
Sure.
From 1997 through 2004, it was a boarding house. And it was grandfathered in as a boarding house. So regardless of the zoning, the current zoning was adopted on December 7th in 2004, I believe. So the zoning didn't matter before that because it was grandfathered in under prior.
Correct, I
prior
understand
use.
that, but what?
And then in 2000, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
In
that's fine. Go ahead.
2004, because of personal circumstances with my client, he didn't renew the license. And so it has not been used as a rooming house since then. Does that answer your question?
Again, I'm just a little confused because why would it be originally changed? Was there something that, did the city take a look at it and change it, or?
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
Yes, the health department told me that I needed to paint the entire outside and the inside. There was a paint issue.
Okay.
And outside, the fence needed to be fixed. And I have some pictures that I comply with all those stuff. And it took me a long time. I'm doing it, most of it myself. But I finally got it up to where I need to get it rezoned so that I can get some students in there. And it'll be a great help. I mean, if I have the chance to show you the pictures, it's a great location there.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Kennedy, I'm sorry, Counselor Mercia, then Counselor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr.
Apologize.
Mayor. Through you to the gentleman here. On Plymouth Street, are there any other boarding houses on that street?
There's a couple of units that they have students. There's also a what you may call that? On the corner, there's a community. I can't find the word for it.
Is it a frat house?
Yeah, there's a fraternity.
But
in
it's
front,
not a
on the
boarding
front.
house. They don't have a boarding house on that street, right?
I don't believe.
But there's a frat house on the corner,
on
right?
the other side. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, I'm sorry, Counselor Kennedy.
Thank you. I think, and I have a list of the boarding houses in the city. There is no boarding house on the north side of the river, anywhere on the north side of the river. And this property would be on the north side of the river. But, so if I understand your explanation, what happened was, this was you were a non-conforming property for zoning, but you were grandfathered, so you were legally non-conforming, but then you ceased the use.
Yes.
And lost your license. And then once you did that, then you weren't able to, then you fell out, right?
Yes,
And you couldn't, you were no longer legally grandfathered, you were gone, so then it couldn't be a boarding house any longer.
Yes, that's why they suggested me to fully incorporate the whole property as institutional.
Okay, so really what you're trying to do here is grab a piece of the institutional zone and make the rest of your property in the institutional zone rather than in the two-family zone or whatever that it's in right now.
Yeah, it's on a multi-family.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Could I just clarify one thing? As I read the zoning book, fraternities and sororities they're under the definition of boarding houses and lodging houses.
That might be true. There is no license.
Oh, I
Boarding
understand,
houses
I
in Lowell,
understand.
you have to go get a license
Right,
from the
yes.
License Commission,
Right.
and you pay, I don't know, $1,000 or a couple of $1,000 every year for that license. And those are the licensed boarding houses that we have in the city.
I understand.
And I think there's probably maybe 10 or a dozen in the whole city, but none of them are on the north side of the river.
Right. I believe 20 or 21 is what I was told, but you're right. None in the vicinity of my client's house.
You believe 20 or 21 what?
In the whole city, that there are 20 or 21.
I don't think there's that many, not on the list that I have, and I just got the list like a month ago.
Yeah, I spoke to him, I'm not
It
arguing.
doesn't matter how
Mr.
many there
Nguyen,
were.
and you know Mr. Nguyen, anyway.
Yeah.
Does someone else have questions?
No, Councilman Millen has one.
Thank you. Since we're asking questions, we have a report from the planning board which issued a negative recommendation on June 4th. There were a couple of people who spoke in opposition and no members of the public spoke in favor. Did you not attend the planning board meeting?
I did not think that it was.
But my client was confused. It was before he retained my services. He was not aware that it was going to be a public meeting. He thought it was just going to be a meeting with himself and city officials. He was not prepared for that meeting. He did not know it was going to be a public meeting. In addition, I don't know, the folks who spoke do not live close by. And I don't know exactly what their specific objections were.
Well, you may hear in about 5 minutes.
I will be happy to address them.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
Are we still in the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, no, I'll reserve my
Okay.
comments till after, thank you.
Anybody else in favor? Anybody else want to speak in favor? That portion is closed. Now, anyone who wants to speak in opposition? In opposition?
Eric Slagle, Director of Development Services. I just wanted to step forward to bring to the council's attention.
Excuse me, do you want to speak first, Councilor Mercia?
No, let him close this up.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring to the council's attention the communication that Councilman Melange mentioned, which is from the planning board. It's a section number 5.3 in your packet. The planning board did have a public hearing on the request, and they voted to report a negative determination to the council because they believe that the change would be inconsistent with the city's master plan and inconsistent with the Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Master Plan, and that they had concerns that this would turn the subject property into the only property on Plymouth Street in the institutional zone, and that zone, they believe, was inconsistent with the multifamily nature of the street. So my department did have a lot of interactions with the property, so if the council does have any further questions about it, I'd be glad to answer.
Any further questions? Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, the public hearing is over.
It's over now.
Okay, thank you. My recommendation is that of the planning board. I'm not a planning board member. I take what they say very sternly, and the board voted unanimously to issue a negative recommendation because it is consistent with the city's master plan in that area. I asked the question, are there any other boarding houses on the street? The answer is no. There isn't any over there in that section. Those people that probably didn't live on the street did live actually in the neighborhood, maybe not in the immediate neighborhood, but they're very active in overlooking what's best for the residents, and I'm sure they got feedback from those that do live in the immediate area. Therefore, I'm not supporting this recommendation.
Councilor Elliott?
I concur with the recommendation from the planning board. I took some time to go out to the location. I do know it pretty well. It's a very congested area, and I personally feel that putting 12 people in that one structure is dangerous. whether it's parking or traffic or whatever the case. I understand that it's, more affordable for students, but I feel we're just exacerbating a problem in that neighborhood through parking and so many others. In the neighborhood, they went to the meeting and they spoke in opposition to it, and having visited the site, I don't think it's appropriate, so I'm gonna support the recommendation from the planning board and the neighborhood group and not support this. Thank you.
Councilor Mendoza?
I'd like to move to deny the petition as presented.
All right, so is a second to that?
Second.
Second, okay. Roll call. Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Excuse me, read the question. What's the
So
question?
motion to deny
Okay,
the
all right. Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
9 yeas. Defeated. Next, 3.2, ordinance, amend zoning 232 to 234 Mount Vernon Street and 268 Mount Vernon Street, 294 School Street, and 5 Farnham Street. Open the hearing. Anybody want to speak in favor? Favor?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, George Theodoro, appearing on behalf of the petitioner, Broadway Street Holdings. Broadway Street Holdings presented this petition to rezone this property, which was done at the direction and with the input of the city's Department of Planning and Development. This property is the subject of an RFP that was issued by the city in April of 2017, and Broadway Street Holdings was a successful bidder, in which they were selected in July of 2017. We presented this matter before the planning board last week at a public hearing. It was unanimously approved, and what this will allow for, will allow for the request for proposal to be finalized. It will allow the city to sell the property. It will allow this petitioner to develop the property. And also at the same time, what it will do is, this is one piece of the acre revitalization plan that was put into place approximately 20 years ago, and it will advance the intent and the spirit of the acre plan. The property was sold to the city in 2006. It's the old Susie Ironworks, and we believe that this rezoning with respect to the city's input that we've had will allow for the best possible use and development of this property, and we ask you to act favorably. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? In favor?
Eric Slagle, Director of Development Services. I just wanted to note the communication from the planning board where, as Attorney Theodoro mentioned, they voted unanimously to support this zoning change.
Anyone else in favor? In favor? Hearing's closed. Those in opposition? Anyone speaking in opposition? Opposition? That portion is closed.
Move approval.
Move approval. Second by Councilor Mercia. Motion by Councilor Kennedy.
Question.
Yes, Councilor Lee.
Can we, do they know what they're gonna do with this parcel yet? As far as developing it?
One portion of the property is going to, the portion that you see on your plan right there, in which the zoning is going to be extended to light industrial, a commercial building is going to be constructed on that portion of the property. The filings have been done with the zoning board and the planning board, and that property is going to house and the relocation of the Owl Stamp Company which is a business that's been in existence in the city of Lowell since the early part of the century. And the second part, the other half of that building, is going to house the Megan House Foundation, in which this nonprofit is going to have operate a business there that is going to allow for the members who have gone through their process at the Megan House to re-educate them and bring them back into the workforce. So this is a wonderful combination of public and private partnership, and also a partnership with the city of Lowell in developing these properties.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Can't do public hearings, Bill. You can public hearings.
All right, roll call.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
You're all set, thanks. Next, we have 3.3, ordinance create new chapter 199 entitled marijuana licensing. Want to open the hearing for those in favor? Anyone want to speak in favor?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Eric Slagle, Director of Development Services. This is the next of our ordinances resulting from the legalization of adult use cannabis in Massachusetts. As was mentioned several times during the subcommittee meetings and during the public hearing on the zoning, the statute and the regulations authorize a municipality to place a limit on the number of, in this case, the retail adult use cannabis companies, businesses. And that number can be placed at no lower than 20% of the adult or of the alcohol beverage licenses issued by the city. And in Lowell, that's 22. So the lowest number that the city council can place on the number of adult use licenses is 5. So the language that was drafted by the law department that we worked on would in fact enact a limitation on adult use cannabis at the number of 5. We believe that that's a good number to start with. There would be nothing precluding the council from coming back at some later time and increasing that number. But if we did have a larger number and there were more licenses issued, then we'd have some grandfathering concerns if the council thought that that was too many. So in consultation with the administration and the development services staff, we put together this ordinance, and we would suggest it, request the council approve it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor?
Good evening. My name is Chuck Saba, and first and foremost, I'd like to commend the city of Lowell for taking a lead in Massachusetts for zoning recreational use for adult use marijuana, as well as taking a lead in creating pickle courts in the city, which I think is a great thing for seniors. As one of the owners of a piece of property that's going to begin build out of a cultivation center in Lowell, and in hiring dozens, if not more, of economically empowered and expunged record and rehabilitated team members, I think that the council really needs to think about the total number ultimately at the beginning. I'm not sure if that number 5 is including Patriot Care, which is doing a dual operation, as the ordinance had been changed to allow that. Is that part of the 5, Eric?
Yes, so the Patriot Care has a host community agreement with the city that authorizes them to do retail of adult use, and that does count towards the number of licenses that the city can issue. Right.
I assume that. So really, we're down to 4 at this point, 4 within the zones that are approved. Given the fact that the AG's office has now allowed cities and towns to extend moratoriums for an additional year, I think we really need to think about how many we want and where they're going to be located, because that's an important facet to the city. You have your regulations, you need to operate these existing 5 units in places where you are going to have an economic windfall, more or less, because a lot of the surrounding communities are going to continue with the moratorium. So this is really time to consider the best locations within the city, and to keep an open mind on ideas forthcoming for additional locations. I commend the work that's been done with the locations to keep retail establishments out of neighborhoods, away from schools. There aren't a lot of locations within the RROP zones, but there are locations, and just take your time considering which ones and how many, because I think this is an opportunity for the city. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor? In favor? That portion of the hearing is closed. Anyone in opposition? 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 That portion is closed. Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a problem with this ordinance because I know we really tweaked it the best that we could. But what we really need to do, as the gentleman Chuck Saber said, what we really need to do is this, that, and the other. What we really need to do, in my opinion, is to find a way to measure if a person is driving under the influence of a drug, similar to when a person is driving under the influence of alcohol and they have a breathalyzer and they can measure that. There's no way to measure, indicate if you're driving under the influence of maybe you smoke too much pot. I don't know, but that's what troubles me, and it's not this council's fault, but that always bothered me, but I just had to say it. Other than that...
I understand what you're saying. Anyone else? Discussion? Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 20% of 22 is 4.4. So do we round up to get the extra one? Can we round down and get the lower one?
I think we did round up, and I think you have to round up under the proposed law on the state that you take
the next one.
That 0.4 goes to another license.
Okay.
That's the minimum that we have to.
That's the minimum. Right, makes sense. So I just want to ask Mr. Slayo, could you please explain the Patriot Care deal, or they're considered? I thought that was a medical cultivation. They have a dual.
Yes.
Yeah. So Patriot Care has an existing cultivation facility that is currently medical cultivation, and an existing dispensary that's a medical dispensary.
Medical, right.
They have applied for licenses to convert both of them to dual facilities, medical and adult use.
Okay, so they've applied. Right now, they're just existing medical
They've applied with
Got
the
it.
state, and they've executed a host community agreement with that's been signed by the city manager to convert those facilities over.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Councilor Milonazo, Councilor Newton?
No, I'd just like to put a motion on the floor to move approval.
Okay. Second.
Just one question though, if I may, surrounding the number that we came up with. I'm just concerned that, with the lower number we're taking, we somewhat give opportunity for company like Patriot Cares and all those other to monopolize, because in terms of the medical dispensary or cultivation, I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with the number, but I'm just thinking about that because now it's a hot business in the Commonwealth, and everyone want to pick on this, and if we say 5 and then it's all set and that's it, and then there's no opportunity to, this is also opportunity to collect taxes as well for the city, so You know, the only things that it just comfort me is the fact that we can, if we feel that there's a need to increase, we can come back and amend this and have it additional. I've just expressed my reluctance on this, but the good part is that we do have opportunity to, if need be, to up it. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Kennedy.
I'm sorry, I just have one more follow-up question. So presumably this passes and we've zoned, and I think that's important that we do create zones, which is why I had filed the motion a long time ago. And I give credit to the Planning Development and Mr. Slagle and the Zoning Subcommittee for as Council Mercer mentioned, tweaking this thing. And so we're going to have a minimum of 5. And my question is, how many applications have we received? And I know there is criteria for financial stability and a lot of other requirements, qualifications, et cetera. Those applications are specifically for retail, and is there possibility? I mean, I guess I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with the retail, but not the cultivation or the medical dispensary. Is that outlined in the legislation?
It is, and I think to date we have approximately 10 applications. Is that correct, Mr. Slagle, for retail, for the adult use?
That's correct. 10 that include retail. Some of them are retail and cultivation, but the 10 that include retail.
Okay. Can we get that breakout at some point? And what is the next step, I suppose? And I'm not trying to put the horse before the cart.
So just quickly by way of background, as the council may have seen, the Attorney General issued an opinion the other day that granted more time for communities to do a number of things in and around adult use of marijuana, including more time to decide zoning and so forth. So communities who had a moratorium in place, they got an extension. And I think it's primarily because they're hearing from communities that this is difficult. They're trying to process what's the right way to zone, where are the right areas. We've already done that, so we're ahead of the curve on that. And likewise, I think many communities are taking a cautious approach because this is new territory. We haven't, done this in the Commonwealth before, and there are a number of issues. But so we are recommending approving the minimum number. We can always increase, but 5 is a fair amount to be licensing, and that's what we're required to do. As I mentioned some weeks ago, we did establish a task force, a working task force in the staff that are vetting all of these applications with some criteria, looking at different aspects. We can get you a report on that, but we want to make sure that whoever we are giving a green light to in terms of our portion of it is a company that can and will be responsible and financially responsible, and also what they're proposing, where it's being proposed. There are a number of factors that we're considering. The next step after that is the company then has to go to the state, to the Cannabis Control Commission, and be examined and vetted there, and that's where they get the license. So we don't give the license. That will be from the Cannabis Control Commission. And assuming they get the license, then they would be in a position to open up a dispensary for recreational marijuana.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. So, it just as following up to Councilor Noon, who's asking what if somebody came in and bought up all 5, and then they had everyone in the city. I'm sure there's a reason why that can't happen, but can you or somebody just explain the process? In other words, you have to go to the Cannabis Commission.
Yes.
You get a green light from them, and then you
And that's
come
where
back.
they get the license.
Right, okay. And then you can come back here. We locally have no more control over it other than we've designated the areas in which you can set up shop.
Well, I think Mr. Slagle can explain. So when someone comes to us and they will propose where they want to locate that, so we know where, in their proposal, we know who the company is, we know what they're proposing, and we know the address that they're proposing, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the way the process works is somebody cannot go through with their licensing at the state level until they have a host community agreement with the city. And our host community agreements, we're requiring they state a specific address, so they wouldn't be mobile. Someone would have to tell us the address that they want to go. And so that information is provided to the city manager before there's a determination as to whether we're going to allow that company to go forward with a host community agreement.
Okay, so then, just so that everybody understands this, so what happens is if an applicant is interested in opening up a shop, all right, then what they need to do is identify a location for that shop, make an application with the city. The city has to then say, give consent to that. And then once you've got the local consent, then you go to the Cannabis Commission for the license.
That's correct.
And that's the end of it. Then you're all set.
That's correct.
But there is nothing to prevent somebody from saying, well, I want to get every license in Lowell. Is there?
I mean, there's nothing other than the city manager's host community agreement process, and I don't think we'd ever contemplate issuing more than one location in Lowell at this time to someone else. But I think in the future, I suppose that would in theory be a possibility.
So who gives the green light to locally? Who makes the determination that a entity is good to go with with opening up a retail facility?
Well, that's a signed host community agreement with the city manager. So she has assembled a task force of people to review the applicants, but the city manager has the ultimate authority as to whether or not she wants to enter into a host community agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Milonazo.
Thank you. The MMA has been tracking the marijuana issue across the Commonwealth, and if I could just, in the beacon that was left in our desk this evening, it talks about municipalities are allowed to cap the number of recreational marijuana retailers at 20% of the number of the package store license, which we're doing. And it does state you have to round up, as Madam Manager indicated, but lowering the retail cap requires a ballot vote. So for us to even to go below the 5, it would require a ballot vote. So again, I think we're starting at the right place with the number 5. And as Councilor Noon and others have indicated, if there's a need to revisit this, we can certainly do that. But at the end of the day, only 15% of Massachusetts communities across the Commonwealth have actually dealt with this. And again, the city of Lowell should be commended for being in front of this. And there's only 12 communities to date that have approved the retail cap. So we'll be 13. Thank you.
Thank you. Need a motion to adopt? I'm sorry, you haven't?
I think we have a motion.
Yeah, we do.
have a
I'm
motion.
sorry. Roll call.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Okay. We're going to 3.4, Speedway. LLC requests license for additional storage of flammable 28,000 gallons of gas and 12,000 diesel fuel for 566 Pawtucket Street. I will open the hearing for those in favor. Those in favor.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. My name is Devin Ward. I'm here with Bowler Engineering on behalf of Speedway LLC. The location in question this evening is located at 566 Pawtucket Street. That's right next to the UMass Lowell South Campus at the corner of Wilder Street by the canal. Just a clarification on the agenda, we're not seeking an additional 28,000 gallons. It's actually, we're currently licensed for 36,000 gallons of flammable storage between gasoline and diesel fuel. Currently, there's 3 10,000 gallon tanks being utilized. This is a maintenance project proposed by Speedway to remove and replace the tanks as they've reached their end of their usable life cycle. And we're proposing to take out the 3 10,000 gallon tanks and replace with 2 20,000 gallon tanks. So we're going from in-the-ground storage of 30,000 to 40,000, but we're currently licensed for up to 36,000. So we're only proposing an amendment to our license for an additional 4,000 gallons. The new tanks to go in the ground are proposed to go in the exact same location as the existing tanks. They will be brand new, state-of-the-art, double-walled fiberglass tanks with active leak monitoring. And I'm happy to help you with any questions you may have.
Any questions from the floor? We're all set. Anyone else speak in favor? Anyone else speak in favor? All set. Portion of the hearing's closed. Though anyone wants to speak in opposition to this? Anyone that wants to speak in opposition? Opposition? This portion is closed. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not an expert on gas under the ground or whatever, or tanks, but all that I know is the acting firemen, they inspected it, and they approved of it. So if they approved of it, they know more than I know, and I support the recommendation.
Motion to adopt by Councilor Kennedy.
Seconded.
Second by Councilor Cirillo. Roll call, please.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Okay, we've concluded that. You're all set. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, 4.1, utility public hearings. 4.1, National Grid requires request permission to install 1,720 feet of new gas main from 1852 Middlesex Street to Chelmsford Town Line. Open hearing for those who want to speak in favor. In favor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Madam City Manager. I'm Susan Griffin with National Grid. I'm here to represent these two petitions. The gas main that we're looking to replace was installed in 1931. It's 4-inch bare steel. That's the gas main on Middlesex Street. The gas main on Chelmsford Street was installed in 1900, and it's 4-inch cast iron. And we're looking to replace that pipe, that distribution network, with 6-inch plastic.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? In favor? This portion is closed. Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition?
Hi, I'm Sean Cloran, and this isn't exactly in opposition to this, but to any new increases in
I
natural...
just need where you live, your name.
Oh, 72 Varney Street.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I would ask the city to look carefully at to not accept any increases in natural gas inflow into the city until the workers that are on strike, or not on strike now, but are locked out of the natural gas facility are given their jobs back. And also, there's a number of issues. Environmental issues. The city of Lowell is hoping to go sustainable or carbon neutral by 2035. So as long as there is a known plan for National Grid to reduce its natural gas inflow to the city in the future, and also to reduce the costs that are projected to increase for residents in terms of natural gas prices. As long as those issues are addressed, then, or I hope the city looks at those issues. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
No, I wanted to speak after the...
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else speak in opposition? In opposition?
National Grid is a corporation that cannot be
Name,
trusted.
please.
Katie Irwin.
Okay, thank you.
Let me say this louder for the folks up front and in the back. National Grid cannot be trusted. To begin, this company is attempting to push through a project for a 12-inch wide pipeline through the city of Lowell that is of no interest to us.
Excuse me.
For folks who don't have enough information about the Lowell area gas...
Excuse me for a second, please. You have to address the issue.
I will. I'm getting to that.
Well,
for folks who don't have enough information about the Lowell Area Gas Modernization Project, let me say this.
excuse me. Can
This
you give your
project, which
excuse
is
me,
different from the pipeline...
Can you give your address, please? I asked that up front.
Yes, I have a page and I'm
I
getting
want
to
your
it.
address now.
Oh, my
Where do you
address,
live?
29 School Street.
Thank you.
For folks who don't have enough information about the Lowell Area Gas Modernization Project, let me say this. This project, which is different from the pipeline that National Grid is referring to today, is proposed in the name of safety and modernity. They would like to increase the size of the pipeline to run screening devices through the larger pieces of pipe, and in doing so, increase their consumer base for natural gas here in Lowell. However, this project is not for safety. If increasing the size of the pipe were for safety purposes, they would be doing this all over in the surrounding region, which they are not. I personally cannot trust anything National Grid attempts to build as prioritizing safety. With the recent lockdown that Sean mentioned outside of National Grid on School Street, I spoke with employees who were shut out of their jobs because the company would not concede to better health insurance and pensions for workers. National Grid will replace them with workers that are less experienced in repairing and replacing pipelines that transport what one called explosive gas. If National Grid cared about safety, they would not hire less experienced help over a skilled labor force dealing with dangerous natural gas, even for small repairs such as the pipelines they refer to today. If National Grid cared about public health, they would cover their workers' health insurance.
Miss, you are welcome to speak on the issue. I'm not going to repeat it again.
I am.
No, you're not. You're not.
If National Grid cared about safety, they would not continue to build gas pipelines in 2018.
You're through. Thank you. Anybody else in opposition? If you're in opposition, you're speaking about the requests that National Grid has before us. And you're entitled
My name is Monica Lundberg. I live at 12 Alyssa Drive, that's over in the Highlands. I am opposed to this project because, and one of the first things I actually was going to say was, why does National Grid want to replace this pipeline? And they said that it is very old, that they are going from a 4-inch pipe made of cast iron to a 6-inch pipe made of plastic. I would like to know, for one thing, why there is a need in relaying an old existing pipe to increase the capacity, which increases the amount of emissions from leaks, which are very prevalent and very dangerous to the environment. I don't know if the council is aware of this, but just last week in the journal Science, a study was published that says that methane emissions from natural gas pipelines are 60% higher than past EPA estimates. When they actually looked into it, the gas emissions, the methane emissions from gas pipelines are much, much higher. That has a profound impact on our city's environment, on our country's environment, on our world's environment. And that has consequences. It has consequences for all of us. It has consequences especially for our children. As a parent, I want my kid to have a planet left to inherit. And expanding these pipelines is not going to help that. Furthermore, I am extremely concerned about the ethical and safety ramifications of granting licenses to National Grid right now. As Katie mentioned, and this is relevant, just this week, National Grid locked out over 1,000 workers. Now, I don't know about, no, Counselor, let me finish, please, before.
No, excuse me. You're in, we'll say, at my court. I'm willing to listen, but you're not going to change the rules. You're not going to make a political statement. I'm concerned about the construction. Whatever concerns you have about this construction, you're free to speak on.
I am concerned about this.
You're not to bring in other information. You're to address the issue. Do you want new pipes?
Will you let me answer your question?
Don't raise your voice in a
I
threatening
am not
manner.
raising my voice. I am speaking
Threatening
at a
manner.
microphone. It's loud.
I know
Will
the
you let me
difference.
answer the question
We'll see.
of why this is relevant?
We'll see.
In a whole sentence? Will you let me get to the end of the sentence, please?
We'll see.
If National Grid is given permission to relay this pipe, they will send their workforce out to relay it. Now, if I'm driving down the street here and They're doing the work. Anybody who goes down that street, anybody who's walking down that street, if there is an accident, if there is a mistake made on that work site, the one that is being proposed right now, that's going to affect anybody there. Natural gas, live natural gas pipelines are very dangerous, and this is a concern that is not one that has been raised first by me, but first by the union representatives of the National Grid workforce. They're concerned about our safety, our community safety. The lockout is relevant, Mayor, because the workers who perform this project that National Grid is proposing are going to be the workers that National Grid has hired. And if they are inexperienced temp workers, would you want to be on a work site? You personally, would you want to be on a work site with a live gas main where every single worker on that site was new to the job because they locked out their entire existing workforce? I know I wouldn't. I know I wouldn't want my child anywhere near that. That's terrifying. Gas explodes. So it is relevant that National Grid has locked out their workers. It is very, very relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Cirillo.
Is the hearing closed?
No, just anyone else speaking in opposition?
I want to speak first, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, good evening. Marissa Shea, 57 Marshall Street. So I'll keep it relevant as possible. So I'm going to skip this first paragraph. So less than a year ago, this council, not everyone on this council, but this council voted unanimously went on record in supporting the goal of becoming 100% renewable by 2035. And this is what I keep going back to. Putting a new pipeline in Lowell is literally the opposite of supporting this goal, to transitioning to 100% renewables. How are we going to get to 100% renewables if we're putting new fossil fuel pipelines in? If we keep allowing National Grid to keep replacing their system. So we need to make a transition. Certain things that this council has probably always done, like give National Grid the green light on all of their requests, needs to change, because National Grid is always on the agenda. I mean, they're on the agenda for like 8 different things tonight. Like fixing the leaks, or like opening up the street to put like a new line in for a house. And I'm asking that this council please be a little bit more discerning, because not all National Grid projects are the same. This request is to install 7/10 of a mile of new pipeline. 7/10 of a mile, that's a lot of road, that's a lot of new pipeline, and they're expanding it. Why are they expanding it? Why not just the same size? So if we're going to transition away from fossil fuels, we need to be asking ourselves, how do we meet this demand in some other way? Who is this specific pipeline servicing? Somebody in that neighborhood? How do we get energy to those people in that neighborhood some other way? So I don't know. I mean, this council voted on this, and if you keep allowing National Grid to build fossil fuel infrastructure, it makes this council look not reliable. I mean, you can't say one thing and then keep doing something else. I mean, you can, but then you lose credibility. I'm saying this as a younger person who is going to have to live in this hot world, okay? So, and there are just a lot of things I don't know about this pipeline, right? Like, well, I know now it's a little bit bigger, it sounds like they're old, but where can we get information about these projects? This is a public utility, and we're from the public, and this stuff just sort of like gets slid through city council. Like, where is the full plan for this? I know with like the larger project, because it's so large, it triggers like a number of requirements, so that information's out there, but what about these smaller projects? And this is not that small, it's almost a mile of pipeline. So, like, how do I access that? I have no information about this. And then the one other question I have for the council and for National Grid is, if the workers are still locked out whenever they start building this, are you actually going to have unexperienced new hires working with flammable gas? Like, are you actually going to do that? And is this council going to allow that? Thank you.
Just a question. Miss, you said you're looking for information. When you say, what type of information would you be looking for?
information about this project.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, for the other 2.5 mile pipeline, there are literally hundreds of pages of information about the pipeline. And we've read through it, and all the information's there. And for this one, it's 0.7 of a mile, so presumably it's not large enough to trigger all those state requirements. So, but where is the information? I mean, does the city have it, or?
We'll check on that. We'll
Thank you.
respond to that. Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Cirillo.
Is it over?
Is hearing over?
Sorry. Anyone else speaking? Hearing's closed. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to delay these two issues. First of all, I understand and I support the fact that we need to put new pipes in. I mean, they're decades old. But I do have concerns, as was mentioned, about, and I spoke to workers coming in who are on the picket line. I mean, I didn't like when Tufts Medical locked out the nurses, and I don't like workers being locked out from their jobs. I think that's unfair. I think there's a better way to go about it. But there is concern about, employees, and I understand perhaps this is some contract work, but there's still oversight. And, there's employees that were just trained a couple of weeks ago that are taking the places of individuals that have been there for 30 and 40 years. So, I mean, there are some issues of risk and work being done. We are talking about gas. So I'm making that motion that we delay it until this is sorted out and there are experienced workers, and we don't have to. I mean, look what happened in Providence, Rhode Island. That's real. It's serious. We do have a lot of gas leaks in the city. We're trying to fix them, but I think
A second on that motion?
that's my motion.
I would second that motion.
Okay, but Mr. Conway had his hand up.
Yeah.
You have a second?
Yes,
All right,
I did.
yes. You want to speak on the motion?
Yeah.
Oh, you had your, yes.
I
go
was
ahead.
speaking. Second, sorry. So, does the second get to speak first before I do? Does the second?
Repeat that, please.
Does the second get to speak first before I do?
No, just go ahead. You had your hand up before.
Okay. I know that I was concerned about National Grid locking out 1,000 union workers. And I work in Medford, and I drove by a bunch of these workers outside with signs, and one really hit home with me, and the sign said, "Experience equals public safety." Now, that's my concern for the city and the residents and the community of Lowell, is their public safety. And I will not agree with any work that National Grid does while their very experienced workers do not have jobs. And so I would like to amend Councilor Elliott's motion and bundle all of National Grid's work, because we're talking about electricity, we're talking about gas, and none of that is safe when you don't have experienced workers. I work in construction, and I know that these are some very key issues where we need experienced workers. To bundle all of the National Grid public hearings until after they come to agreement with their workers.
Just, on your motion, would you accept that?
I don't have any objection to it. I'm not sure if the electrical workers are on strike. I think it's just the gas company, but sure.
Councilor Conway?
That's fine.
Just very briefly, I think the last speaker that came up here certainly made a lot of sense, and I think brought out some very important points, and again, what Councilor Cirillo just mentioned too was the public safety. When you're dealing with something that is as dangerous as natural gas, you obviously want the best. You want the best as far as that's concerned, and I really believe that if we wait until the workers, the experienced workers are back, I personally would feel more comfortable with that. Thank you.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you. I understand the intent of Councilor Cirillo's motion, but I believe on the electric petition that's before us, one has to do with a brand-new single-family house, and I just can't see making that family wait. In my opinion, if they can't get the electricity turned on, they can't move in. I mean, I understand the intent, but at the end of the day, we're talking apples and oranges here. I'm going to support Councilor Elliott's motion. I think that from the standpoint of these employees, and I actually have a family member who's been locked out, and I think experience does matter when you're talking about replacing a line that was put in back in 1931. And even though it's going from a 4-inch to a 6-inch or whatever, I think, again, that we're getting probably more methane and emissions from the old line than we certainly will get from the new line going in. So I can respect their opinion relative to the environment, and we hopefully would get to 2035. But at the end of the day, this is a safety issue as far as I'm concerned along Middlesex Street and Chelmsford Street. But I'm prepared to wait until the issue of the lockout is resolved, and I'll be supporting Councilor Elliott's motion, but not Councilor Cirillo's amendment. Thank you.
Councilor Mercy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I as well will support Councilor Elliott's motion. We have like electric and telephone for Clarendon Street. We have electric for Quebec Street. We have just an electric for a handheld, install the handheld service to the new house. These things should be dealt with today. As far as putting the others in abeyance till further notice, I sympathize with those people down there that are locked out of their jobs, and I do quiver when I think that people are going to step in to assume the position of, you know, going through the motions and doing what they do, and they're not as professional as the people that are locked out of their jobs, and that troubles me, and I wholeheartedly support Councilor Elliott's motion.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, there's several things from my point of view. There are 5 National Grid public hearings. We're on the first one. So if we are going to delay action on these public hearings, it would seem to me that it would be better to at least have the public hearings for them tonight rather than not, because it will just mean that you're going to have to re-advertise at some future time, I think, if we don't do that this evening. On the difference between the two of them have to do with gas mains and the other 3 are electrical. And I have to agree with Councilor Milonazo that you don't want an unintended victim, and the people for the single-family house at Clarendon Street would be just that, an unintended victim. So because of that, I would be willing to support delaying action on 4.1 and 4.2, but I think, as I think others agree, that the other 3, 4.3, 4.4, and 4.5 should probably go forward just because they are different from the first 2. But I just would point out that I do think that it probably is a good idea to have to hold all of the public hearings this evening rather than to just put them off and have to re-advertise if that's the case.
Mr. Clerk?
I may make a suggestion, speaking with the law department, maybe if it's the purview of the council, that we could open each public hearing and continue it to the July 24th meeting on Tuesday. Just a suggestion.
I think that might be a good idea, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor?
As a maker of the motion, I have no interest. I don't support that. I don't want to just continue this. I think we should make a firm statement that we're not going to move on this until they resolve it.
Are you talking about the gas and electric, or just the gas?
No, I just think it should be the
Your original
gas. It's the workers that are on strike from the gas side of National Grid.
Do you want to have a roll call on that motion for us?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me just explain one more time. We've had the public hearing on 4.1. That public hearing is complete. If we don't have a public hearing on 4.2 this evening and just open it up and close it, then we're going to have to re-advertise at expense to the city and do the public hearing at some point in the future, foreseeably, when the workers go back. So it would seem prudent to me to have the public hearing on 4.2 this evening and then take no action on both 4.1 and 4.2. The way 4.3 through 4.5 are treated, might be different, but we do have 5 public hearings 5 public hearings need to be advertised. It just makes a lot more sense if we open up the public hearing for 4.2 and then just close the hearing.
I wasn't putting the horse before the cart. My motion was for this one. I fully expected that we were going to open the rest of them, so my motion was to not take any action on this one.
But the thing is,
So,
do you want to go?
it's the motion. I don't know if there was a second on the amendment
Yeah,
or not.
there was not a second on the amendment.
There wasn't. Okay. So
Move the
thing is,
question.
The question would be, do you want to do, as Councilor Kenny said, your 2 motions and just open up the next one?
I only had one
Hold
motion
the-
to delay action
The motion
on this
before the
one.
board is the motion to delay action on public hearing item 4.1.
Okay,
Thank you.
So we'll take them one at a time, so
Okay.
it's okay.
all right. Roll call. I'm sorry, Councilor Mercia.
Well, I don't know if I can amend the amendment, but I'd like to make
There's
it
no amendment.
4.1.
No amendment.
Well, how do we add 4.2?
We'll
Those
just,
two?
Council,
just
we'll
do it
just,
separately.
we'll go through the same process and then just vote,
Okay.
Do it
take
separately.
a second
All right.
vote not to take any action on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So roll call.
All right.
Roll call on,
Roll call on motion to delay item 4.1. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon. Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
all right. Next, we go to National Grid request permission to relay existing 2,100 feet, 2,100 feet of gas main on Chelmsford Street between Howard and Liberty Street. So we want to open the meeting up for those in favor. Those in favor?
Susan Griffin with National Grid. This motion, petition before you is for the replacement of existing gas main. It is not for growth of our main. We have a 4-inch cast iron main installed in 1900s. It's leak prone, and we're looking to replace that with 6-inch plastic. That work is traditionally done by our contractor group, highly skilled individuals, and this falls under the Mass DPU GSEP program.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? In favor? Any questions from the floor? This portion of the hearing is closed. Next portion of the hearing is for those in opposition. Anyone want to speak in opposition? In opposition? Councilor Elliott? Okay.
Just after the motion, after the hearing
Right.
closes.
In opposition, we close the hearing. Open for discussion.
Just like to make
Motion.
same motion that this item also be delayed until contract negotiations
Seconded.
have been resolved.
Second by Councilor Conway. Okay. Roll call.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay. All right, we're going to go into now 4.3, National Grid requests permission to install new poles to service new home at 16 Clarendon Street. Open the hearing for those in favor. Hearing open. Those in favor.
Hi, my name's Dave Aguirre, and I'm representing National Grid. National Grid is asking for permission to install a new pole on Clarendon Street and underground conduit to a new home and a handhole on the opposite side of the street to serve the new home.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? Thank you. That portion of the hearing is closed. Those in opposition, speaking in opposition? Opposition? That portion of the hearing is closed.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
The motion is to refer it to the wire inspector.
Referred to the wire inspector.
Any second?
Seconded.
By Councilor Cirillo. No roll call needed. 4.4, National Grid requests permission to install handhold to service 16 Clarendon Street. Open the hearing for those in favor. In favor?
Thank you.
You want to speak in favor?
My name's Dave Aguirre, and I'm just I'm representing National Grid. National Grid is asking for permission to install a pole on Clarendon Street, underground conduit going across the street to a handhole, and that's going to feed the new home that's being built on Clarendon Street.
Thank you. Thank you. Those who want to speak in opposition, this hearing is closed. In favor is closed. Now, who wants to speak in opposition? 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 That portion is closed. Need a motion to refer to the wire inspector by Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Milonazo. Thank you. Next, we have 4.5, National Grid requests permission to install underground electric conduit along Quebec Street from Blossom Street to Maple Street. Open the hearing for those in favor. In favor?
Hi, my name is Jason Farr. I'm with Lighthouse LLC. I'm representing National Grid on this petition. So this is a proposition to replace around or install around 2,100 feet of new conduit bank along Maple Street and Quebec Street. This is a replacement of existing direct buried wires that are old and have been, basically they're prone to fault. They are unreliable and they are not usable. So the proposition here is to basically remove the old cable and have new conduit so that we can pull new conductor to supply this line to reduce the likelihood of a fault and basically dropping the customers that this line serves. I do have one other question for you. There is also another petition, I believe it's 10 point.
Those get, that's to get referred to the public hearing.
So those would be separate from this then, I believe.
Yeah, so it would be done now.
Okay.
Just a reference.
So-
Anybody else speak in favor?
Also, I would like to specify that this is underground electric, this is not gas.
Yes, we understand that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just clarifying, sorry.
Those in, okay, this portion of the hearing is closed. Those in opposition? 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 That portion is closed. Okay. I need a motion to refer to the wire inspector by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Leahy. We're all set with that. All right, we've cleared off that. We go back to communication from the city manager to, I believe we're a multifamily inspection, or did we complete that? Motion, turnout gear. Madam Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this is in response to the request for an update concerning the turnout gear for the fire department. The chief did prepare a report that's in everyone's packet, and he is here to answer and give the update as to how many we have, and how many we need, and the status of any grant requests.
Any discussion regarding the turnout gear? Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. So I guess the bottom line is, where are we right now, Chief, with this? The information you gave us is what we already purchased.
Right, in the first paragraph, talks about last year, we purchased 86 new sets of pants and coats, as well as 101 boots, 81 sets of gloves, and 6 helmets. So moving forward, this year we've been allotted $100,000 in the operating budget for total gear, which would include pants, coats, and any other miscellaneous items we might need. And we applied for a grant to buy 129 complete sets of turnout gear, an assistance to firefighters grant. We haven't heard the result of that yet. Those results should be coming out each week this summer, and it ends around September, so we should know by September if we're going to get the grant. There's a 10% match. If we do get a grant, the city would pay 10%, and FEMA would pay 90% of the cost of the 129 sets. So if we do get that grant, we'd be able to buy another 129 sets. If not, there's been $67,000 allotted for that 10% match. We could use that money if we don't get the grant, and we'd be able to purchase 55 sets of pants and coats.
All right, and what about boots, though, too? So
We're in pretty good shape right now with boots. We did purchase 101 pair of boots last year, and With that 100,000, we will be buying some more boots this year as needed. And we have some other boots that are a couple of years old that are in pretty good shape. It's mostly the pants and the coats that we need that are, a lot of them are over 10 years old and they're no longer compliant.
All right. So I guess we're getting so close to this. So we already applied for the grant,
Correct.
and the grants start July 1st?
The awarding of the grants already started in April, and it goes every week until about September, there's about $345 million across the country that's awarded, and they grant different awards each week.
Okay. So, say by the end of July, if we don't find out that we're getting awarded, our chances of going down is slim, right?
Yeah, I would say that's correct.
And it wouldn't be prudent to spend the whole, so the numbers I'm coming up with would be we have 101,000 or something, and then we had 128 in the capital budget. So
That was last year, Counselor.
that was last year?
The second paragraph talks about FY19, the upcoming year.
All right.
The
So I
bottom
mean,
paragraph.
the bottom line is we need to get about 131 sets.
Correct.
All right. How are we gonna do that by the end of July if we don't get the grants? Is there a plan for that?
No, it'd be.
How much money do we have to spend then, I guess? I'm getting a little confused with the paragraphs there, so.
So it'd be roughly 167,000 for everything for fiscal year 19. It wouldn't allow us to buy 129 sets if we don't get the grant. It would allow us to buy approximately 55 sets of pants, coats, and boots.
Okay. All right, I was coming up with a number of about 300,000 for 325,000 for everything left to buy. Would that be accurate?
I'd have to sit down and do the calculations. It's roughly 2,200 for a set of pants and coats.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
3,500 for a complete set of gear for one person.
Okay. All right, so if we can we're gonna just stay on top of this.
Sure.
Through you and with the manager but, by the end of July, if we can figure out a plan with the capital budget money and with money that we had allotted in the budget to, do this. This is just something that we need to do. As you know, I've been speaking about this and so hasn't the council, but, and I know that, the police department has access to different grants for different things, but I think this is, just something we have to figure out by the end of July. So if you just keep us posted, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions, Council Elliott?
Just real brief, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the report, Chief. I think it's informative. Can we ask our delegation, our congressional delegation, to weigh in? Because it's a FEMA grant, right, through Federal Emergency Management. Did they send letters of support for our grant application, or?
Yes, we applied maybe 8 months ago, and
Right.
I wrote a letter, the city manager did, as well as a delegation, and we sent it into the folks at FEMA, a
So,
letter of support.
Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, Madam Manager, so.
Heard that.
You've heard that? So I don't know if it's worth it, because it seems like it's a rolling grant program. There's not a deadline if, they just look at applications and fund it.
We also got a letter from Congresswoman Tsongas's office as well.
Right. So.
Yes.
Maybe that's.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we will monitor this. It is important, but if we are even in the running for a 90% grant, that's significant. So we certainly want to make sure we see it to the end to see if we are lucky enough to be selected. And since we expect that we'd know no later than September, we want to make sure we keep that 10% match, which is in the budget. But at some point, Counselor, if we're not getting it, then we need another plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other discussion? Council Leahy?
So I just want to, and I totally can understand that rationale, but this is something that, this is into the second year now and this is something that really drastically, thinking has to change as a city on this, so. And just one other thing too, with the turnout gear, could we just get an update on the the extractors next meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get that into everybody's hands.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Next is the informational report, transfer of over 20,000 for fiscal year 18. Information, Madam Manager,
I'm sorry, wasn't.
the transfer, $20,000.
Oh, yeah, there are a number of transfers, and as far as this one, I will turn it over to the CFO, Connor Baldwin, to address.
Thank you, Madam Manager. This item on the agenda, there are a number of transfers requiring votes later on in the agenda. This is in keeping with the spirit of a motion by Councilor Kennedy from a number of years ago to provide the council with information of any internal transfers not requiring a vote over the threshold of the $20,000. So in the package, we provided a summary of each of those transfers that have occurred throughout the year for the council's information.
Any questions on that matter? Thank you. I need a motion to accept and place on file.
So moved.
By Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Cirillo. Next.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I ask for suspension of the rules to take up a motion that I filed? There are some individuals here who want to speak on it.
Okay, a second.
If there's no objection.
Seconded.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
11 point. It's 11.8.
What's the motion? Okay. Requires City Council work with Plug in American to set up an event in Lowell for National Drive Electric Week, correct?
Correct, that's correct, Mr.
You have
Mayor.
a speaker? Need a second? Second for the motion by Councilor Noon.
Hi, I'm Scott Darlington. I live at 43 Plummer Avenue, and I've been working with Jeff Ketch from the Sierra Club. It's a national event, National Drive Electric Week in September, and they've started, there was an event at least every state last year. It's funded, Electrify America, or Plug in America, sorry, is funded through some of the Volkswagen settlement money. And it's also co-sponsored by Nissan as well as the Sierra Club. So last year I looked and see if there was an event in Lowell, and I didn't find one. So the closest one was Beverly last year. I didn't have a chance to go, but we were able to purchase a Chevy Bolt this year. So thought it'd be great to bring this event to Lowell. And the basic idea of the event is you have electric car owners bring their cars. So it's kind of like a car show. And it lets people that might be interested in electric cars kind of demystify what it is to sit in one, drive one, ask the owner how much it costs, what it costs to charge it, things like that, how long it goes for if they're concerned about the range. So there's only 1% of electric car owners, but the surveys say that up to 36% would buy an electric car if it had a certain amount of range. So, so we've got a group together. We're just starting to work on it. They met with one of the city event planners today, I believe, and we sketched out an idea for doing something on September 15th, which is Saturday. And we were trying to follow the model of a couple of years ago. There was a old car race, I guess, on Middle Street.
Right.
Or I don't know if it was a real race or it was just like the cars came up. I didn't attend, but I've seen pictures. It looks amazing to, you know, the cars on the cobblestone street. So we were thinking, why not ask for that, and why not work with the city on trying to do that? If not, you know, so we're kind of at the beginning stages, but we're looking to partner with some of the car dealerships that perhaps sell electric cars, and just to try to get more people into electric cars.
Thank you.
So.
Another registered speaker. Jeff Keach.
Jeff Cage, 141 John Street. I am with the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club is one of the national sponsors of National Drive Electric Week. And our local group, the Merrimack Valley Sierra Club team, will be working with Scott, and we've put together a team of volunteers that includes 350 Mass. Will be meeting with them tomorrow. But we've also got the Sustainability Council on board with this. I met with Toby Marks today. He is the special events planner, and he seemed to think that the Middle Street closing would be perfect. and he's working with us on making that happen. The events that we plan to have, we're going to close the street from 9 to 4 with an hour before and after for setup and breakdown. And the events will be, first of all, the gathering of owners. That's the main central piece of the thing on Middle Street. Toby says that we have room for 30 cars maximum, and we figured that 25 to 30 people would be good. There will be tabling and also demonstration of charging stations and other kinds of infrastructure. There will be probably, this is to be determined, a parade and a test driving. It'll probably be sponsored by the sponsors. We have a national sponsor, the Nissan Leaf, and we're hoping to get them on board. Thank you.
Councilor Cirillo?
Well, it's my
I'm sorry. I thought you apologize.
If you want to.
Long evening.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I learned of this through Scott and Jeff, and I thought it was a good idea. And you know, we are a city of festivals and events, and I thought it was a win-win-win where we're going to be able to bring people will come into the city, perhaps close Middle Street as we do with so many other events and art festivals and folk festivals, and but here's a chance to bring people into the city. And provide exposure, let them come and test drive, sit in vehicles, electric vehicles. And, you know, it's an environmental issue, it's an economic issue, and I thought it was a really good idea, and I thought it was important to bring forward to get support for it. I mean, yeah, there was a car show or a car race. There was, you know, hundreds, thousands of people came downtown, so here's a chance for people to come outside the city, inside the city. People that maybe want to check out an electric vehicle, they normally would not do so because they have to go into a dealership, and we all know the nuances of going into a car dealership. So that's the essence of it. There's no cost, and there's going to be tabling, and it'll bring people downtown, and hopefully people will buy electric cars and work to cut down on the carbon emissions. So that's the motion.
Good motion.
Yeah. You want to speak? Yeah.
I know you guys have been talking a lot about congestion issues and bridges and transportation, but if you check out some of Mary Bear's quotes, the head of General Motors, she's got a real vision for the electric cars that they could reduce and have zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. And the whole idea is as they, the same way smartphones didn't exist 10 years ago, and now they run our lives, the technology that's going to be in the cars and the idea of maybe a car as a service rather than as an ownership can address a lot of these issues, or it's coming, whether we're ready for it or not. It's going to be here, and it's going to impact a lot of what cities do with transportation. So to get some people in cars and just get a sense what they're like, there's minivans out there now, there's huge cars, there's small cars, everything in between, and it's only going to increase. A number of countries have mandated electric cars, so the makers are going to make them whether we mandate it or not, and they'll be available. So,
A question. Would you be running any workshops where people could get more information? How, in other words, beside, sitting in the car themselves or even driving the car, but like a workshop on.
It's something we definitely be interested in. I think we talked about maybe trying to go to some of the summer events if there's people out in the summer just to kind of promote it for September. There's a national website, National Drive Electric Week, where anyone can register to attend or to bring their own electric car there. But I think that's something that we definitely want to get out to some of the community groups to give more information.
Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes. This was a great motion, and I'm really excited for National Drive Electric Week. It really goes along with everything that I've been working towards with the fully electric fleet for the city and more electric charging stations downtown. And I just wanted to say that my daughter's little fully electric Fiat will not take up much room, so you can maybe fit 31 cars there. Thank you.
I just wanted to make, if I could, one more thing. We are hoping to partner with the city, and I'm very appreciative of your bringing this motion to the floor. And one other thing is that our planning is in its very flexible stage. So if you have other ideas, I mean, it's a whole week, but we have, tried to limit what we would do to one day. but we'd certainly be open to other kinds of suggestions for the event.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a really good motion. I think this could be a really good event for the city. I believe the Sustainability Council had this on their agenda a couple of weeks ago, and I think that they have a committee that's trying to put together an event that would include most of what the speakers were talking about today, but also to invite electric car dealers to come so that people can can try out the electric cars, and also to add some music and to add some maybe food trucks to the event as well, in order to try to generate more people. But I agree with Councilor Elliott that the more festivals and special days or special events that we can do in the city, the better off it is. It gives the people an opportunity to come in, and this could be one. I mean, one of my favorite events that goes on in the city is the kinetic sculpture race, and I would see that this would maybe be similar to that in the draw. I'm not sure that I think Middle Street is enough. I think maybe Market Street, if the event is big enough, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, I think it's a great motion. I think it's a great idea. And I think that, and hopefully, events like this also are weather sensitive, so hopefully it'll be on a great day in September too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you. All set, Councilor? Okay. Next is 5.3, communication. Planning Board recommendation regarding proposed zoning code amendment to rezone parcel 29 Plymouth Street from traditional multifamily to institutional. This motion, we need a motion to accept and place on file. This was part of the public hearing item for 3.1.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Noon. Thank you. Next, we have communication, Planning Board regarding proposed zoning code amendment to rezone parcel located at 232, 234 Mount Vernon Street, 268 Mount Vernon Street, and 294 School Street and 5 Farnham Street. This also was part of the public hearing 3.2. Need a motion?
Motion to
To accept, place on file by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Noon. Thank you. Then we have a communication to appoint Vanna Howard to Lowell Housing. Need a motion to adopt? By Councilor Noon, and second by Councilor Kennedy. Roll call.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yeah.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
9 years.
Was Vanna Howard?
Just briefly, Ms. Howard had a conflict tonight at another board meeting, so she couldn't be here, but she's very anxious and pleased to be appointed to serve on the Lowell Housing Authority. And she is a Lowell resident. I know that was a question.
Yes, Councilor Elliott.
Could we just send a thank you letter to the prior
Yes.
board member,
Yeah,
Bo
we're doing that.
Poe? Thank you.
All right, next communication from the city manager, request out-of-state travel for one DPD member. Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Conway. Roll call.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
9 years.
Just, we have 6.1 to 6.11. These are votes for the city manager. You're interested in bundling these?
Motion to
and-
bundle those.
Okay. I will read each one off, and then we'll have the final vote. Okay, second reading by title. Okay. Vote to authorize city manager to execute limited access agreement, Tanner Street. Then next on 6.2, vote continuation of revolving funds for fiscal 2019. 6.3, vote transfer of $1,308,270.03 to cover the cost of snow and ice removal for fiscal 18. Then 6.4, vote transfer of $156,435 to PEG funding. And 6.5, vote transfer of $172,072.14 to cover sick leave buyback. 6.6, vote transfers $21,000 to cover NIMCOG expenses. 6.7, vote transfer $234,171.71 to cover the cost of heating and electricity for wastewater. 6.8, vote transfer $27,219.05 to cover projected expenses for school department energy bill. 6.9, vote transfer $82,368.31 to cover the cost of unforeseen payroll expenses. 6.10, vote transfer $87,860 for fiscal year 17 school choice. Then 6.11, vote transfer illustrates the supplemental appropriation of $350,000 with this funding for electricity and heat for fiscal year 18. I need a motion to adopt them all by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Conway. Was there any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, and Councilor Mercer, Councilor Elliott.
Well, I have some questions through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager. On snow and ice, there are a number of, I can see where it's being transferred from. I guess my question is two large items. Health insurance, $173,000, and then unemployment. I mean, I think this is good because we're covering the snow and ice deficit. Just an explanation on why those two line items are pretty significant. I understand the police, because those are as a result of vacancies as well as fire, but the health insurance, there's a surplus as well as unemployment, which again is a good thing. Could you just explain?
Connor Baldwin can answer that.
Thank you, Madam Manager. The health insurance account, typically we try to leave enough room to budget fully for the year. For health insurance, there's fluctuation in the number of employees that are enrolled in the health insurance plan with the city. That fluctuates consistent. You'll see that there are surpluses in salary and wages permanent. There's a correlation there because those employees may or may not have had health insurance. So the cost for each year fluctuates depending on how many people are employed by the city for the full extent of the year. Unemployment costs were low this year in both the city and the school accounts, which are budgeted in the city budget. So those two, three accounts provided a source of funding for the overage in snow and ice, and it's worth noting that this allowed the city not to carry anything forward into fiscal 19. We've fully paid off finally the 2015 snow and ice deficit that the city was allowed by legislation to amortize over 3 years. We won't be carrying anything forward into the next year, so we kind of are able to start with a clean slate for the first time in a number of years in the snow and ice accounts.
Okay, great. So this won't affect the bottom line on the $2 million that we're going to be replacing from free cash, correct? This is just prior transfers prior to the end of close of fiscal year.
That's right. So it does, to your question, it does sort of use up some of the potential surplus that could have increased the potential free cash certification next year, or free cash as certified at the beginning of the year. We do anticipate that, this isn't all of the surplus expenditures. It was really important, a number of the controls that the city manager put in place in terms of the vacancy review committee, the strict controls on purchase orders. We were able to, from within the budget, really tighten the belt for the end of fiscal 18.
No, I'm going to support these. They're good. It's good fiscal management, because otherwise we have to raise the snow and ice on the recap sheet, and that's going to increase taxes. So I think this is the way that we should do it. It's good. It's wise budgeting, and I think the controls that you put in place, Madam Manager, hiring freeze and monitoring all procurements. This is the net savings, and this is where we're applying it. And I just wanted the people at home to know. I just had one other question, real briefly, Mr. Manager, and that's the transfer for the PEG. Where is that money coming from?
That Connor can explain this too, but that was the outfitting of the bus, the van for the high school last year that was voted on by the council, but they weren't able to actually get the work done and the purchase orders done in the fiscal year. So it's putting that over. You can, if you want to address that, Connor.
Sure, that's a good explanation as to what's happening. We ran into sort of a logistical challenge with outfitting the van. The money was transferred out of the PEG fund into the general fund. However, after we procured the services, executed a contract with the vendor, and then negotiated the logistics of the installation, we kind of ran out of time before the June 30th deadline for the close of the fiscal year. If we weren't to transfer the money back into the PEG fund, it would close to the bottom line with the rest of the funds in the city. So in order to make sure that this money can still be used for the purpose for which it was intended, this is the way logistically that we make that happen. We'll transfer it back into the PEG fund, and then we'll have to bring a vote forward again once the auditor opens the books on fiscal 19 to reappropriate the funds for that purpose.
Okay, and are we doing the procurement here, the city's doing, it's not on the school side?
Yeah, the purchasing department in the city, which handles most, all of the solicitations for the city, is handling the procurement, and we have already procured it, so we'll still be able to do that immediately once we get into fiscal 19.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Connor Baldwin. Is this vote going to allow us to be up to date on the snow and ice deficit, or do we owe money still?
We will be up to date, Counselor, so this will close out all of the deficits for fiscal year 18. And like I said, we until it snows again.
Okay, that's good. That was good news. Now, the second thing is, in the first vote that we have tonight on this bundle is the first one about Tanner Street, and this vote seeks permission from the council to install 2 groundwater monitoring wells at 2 locations on Tanner Street, and once the monitoring is done, the wells will be removed. What is the purpose of, what does this mean? What are we looking for, water? What's happening?
Yeah, it is monitoring groundwater, and there are existing wells, but they're aged, so these are just for testing to have new ones. I know the law department worked on this with the applicant. I don't know whether the solicitor has anything further to add.
Oh, that's what it means. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Thank you. Next, we go to
A vote.
I'm sorry, roll call.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
All right, next we have orders from the city manager, 7.1, order 60-day trial, 733 Central Street, waive the full reading, second reading by title.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know Natasha Vance, traffic engineer, is here, and if there are any questions regarding the 60-day order.
Move to approve.
Okay. Let me read this out. Pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinance, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6, therefore entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. So we're all set. Move to approve by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Kennedy. Roll call.
Council Leahy. Yes. Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Okay, next we have ordinance from the city manager, 8.1, ordinance amend Chapter 272, Water and Sewer, Chapter 272 through 73, compliance with pretreatment standards. I need a motion to refer this to a public hearing.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Conway. We're all set.
When is the public hearing, Mr. Mayor?
July 24th, Council.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah. They'll all be on July 24th. Reports of subcommittee, any subcommittee reports, Councilor Elliott?
I don't have a subcommittee report. I just wanted to let the public know that we've scheduled a rules subcommittee for the next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m.
5:30 next meeting? Okay.
Next, correct, in 2
Councilman
weeks.
Milanazo?
Thank you. I don't have a subcommittee report either, but I'm just asking the administration, back 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was a motion by Council Kennedy on the zoning issues that we want to bring back to the zoning subcommittee. I'm just looking for a timeline on that so we can get that scheduled. So if we can get that information back to the zoning subcommittee, we can schedule it.
Yeah, Mr. Slagle has been working on that. Do we know when that may be coming back to the zoning subcommittee?
Yeah, we've been working with the law department on, as the subcommittee requested, coming up with some ordinances that will assist in the housing issues that were discussed at the subcommittee. In addition, we have we're scheduling a joint meeting with the housing folks at UMass Lowell that's going to take place in the second week of July. Ideally, we're going to try to pool our some ideas and see if they have some policies that they can enact, that they have some suggestions for things that we could do. So I would like to wait until after we've had that meeting with UMass Lowell before we bring anything back to the subcommittee. But it should be sometime in the second half of July. If you wanted to schedule a subcommittee,
Okay.
that way I think that would be an appropriate time
Okay.
to do so.
To that point, we did have a successful meeting with representatives from the university, including the chancellor, a number of issues, but one of them in particular that the city raised was housing, and trying to work with them, also understanding their policies and how they can track their students in the neighborhoods or back to the campus. So that will be a summit per se that's going to happen between the university representatives and the city.
Thank you. It's also interesting to see what the city of Boston has just done with their Airbnb regulations and so forth.
Right.
So we should probably just take a look at what they've done as well.
Thank you. All set, Councilman Milanazo, Council Kennedy.
So are you saying that by the middle of July, you're going to have a proposal for the subcommittee?
I think that's a reasonable time frame. Yes, we've already worked with the law department, and we have an outline of a proposal for the subcommittee. But I do want to have some discussions with the university, because I think there are things that they can do that would make our process a lot easier, and I just don't know. We're not sure exactly how open they are to making those sort of changes.
So if the chairman were to schedule that meeting, the subcommittee meeting, before the second July meeting, we'd be safe in doing that?
Yeah, because the second July meeting is the fourth week in July. I think that would make perfect sense.
Okay.
All set. Councilor Mercer, did you have a question?
Just to speak to Councilor Elliott's, that meeting's July 10th. Good day.
All set.
Thank you.
All right. All right, now next, petitions 10.1, property damage. I need a motion to refer to the Law Department for a report and a recommendation by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Leahy. 10.2 and 10 through 10.5, a motion to refer to the traffic engineer, bundled by Councilor Leahy, seconded by Councilor Milanazo. They are 10.2, Ann Richards requests installation of one handicap parking sign at 186 Suffolk Street. 10.3, Clara Cruz requests installation of one handicap parking sign, 16 Linden Street. 10.4, Cedric Omedian requests installation of stop sign at intersection of Fisher Street and Dalton Street. 10.5, Leslie Estrella, clerk at St. John's Episcopal Church, requests installation of one church parking only sign on Linden Street at the intersection of Hobson Street. I need a motion to refer to the traffic engineer for a report and recommendation for all of these. By Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Elliott. We're all set with that. The next 10.6 through 10.9 are public hearings. I'd like to bundle those.
So
Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Cirillo. They are National Grid requests permission to install a sole-owned pole on Ellsworth Street for new feeder extension for Markley Developed Data Center. 10.7, National Grid requests permission to replace existing gas main on Nesmith Street between Andover Street and Bartlett Street. 10.8, National Grid / Verizon New England requests permission to relocate pole number 2 on Maple Street towards Gorham Street. 10.9, systems, TC Systems, or AT&T, requests permission to install underground cable conduit on Aiken Street at the intersection of Father Morissette Boulevard. In point 10, TC Systems, or AT&T, requests permission to install underground cable conduit on University Ave between Riverside Street, VFW Highway. We need a motion to refer these to the public hearing on July 24th, 2018 at 7 p.m. I need a bundle list for the council. So Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Mercia. Thank you. We've now got to motions. Do we? No? Yes, we do. First city council motion by Councilor Leahy. Request city manager to have DPW repair sections of the Paul Library roof. Need a second? By Councilor Mercia. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Motion basically speaks for itself. There's a section of the trim that comes down and it needs to be done. If we could just find out also, what the thinking was on it, but it should be repaired immediately. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to amend that motion and add as well to the library that there are 2 broken windows in the men's bathroom, and they've been broken for over a year. So along with the roof, since you're in the library anyway, these 2 windows should be fixed. And I don't know how they stayed broken out. Honest to God, this is unbelievable.
We will certainly add it to the list, and I know there's some work that's being done on handicap accessibility on both the men's, and I don't know if it's the same men's room or women's room, but we'll check that out.
Well, there's 2 broken windows, and it's in the same men's bathroom. I mean, it's rather cold in the winter, I would assume, right?
I would think so.
Thank you.
Okay, next by Councilor Leahy. Request city manager to have National Grid identify trouble spots concerning electricity throughout the city and the plan to remedy them. A second by Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you. So if we could have National Grid give us a layout of the city and some trouble spots that they think that they might have and what they're going to do to address them. So one example would be the last few storms that we've had. There's a section of Loose Street that's always out, and it might be part of Ridge Road too. But these seem to be, they go out every single time, and they're always the last to be returned with the electric. And I don't know what it is, but it just, one section is just a trouble spot, and it just keeps happening. So the residents of Loose Street had asked me to put this in. Thank you.
Any discussion? Okay. Next by Councilor Leahy. Requests Mayor provide a report to the City Council regarding the status of the TV studio at Lowell High School. Need a second by Councilor Noon. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. So I put this through you, Mayor, since you're the chair of the school. If you get a report with the superintendent of schools to find out exactly what is going on. So it's my understanding that, we're having trouble with the van, first of all, which shouldn't happen. But that money will be reassessed, and that van should be equipped. The second part is that, I heard that layoff notices were sent to the directors of the studio, and I have spoken with the superintendent. I've spoken with former Assistant Superintendent Jay Lang, spoken with a number of people, the manager, but in my view, this just seems to be some sort of a political play, and it's really unacceptable to me that there would be any threat that this TV studio would be shut down. Now, I didn't attend the school committee meeting, so I don't know all the facts, but from what I do know is it's just totally unacceptable that this would be, we would even play games with this. So I think that, in my opinion, that studio should be up and running for the benefit of the kids. And the director that's been there has full knowledge of how to do it. great with the kids. He's been a great employee for the last 25 years with his staff and probably the teacher that had been there. But, so if we could get a report on this and find out what's happening, it's just unacceptable. So,
To your report,
Sure.
I believe we're setting up a July 5th school committee meeting to deal with a new temporary CFO, and that will be one of the matters discussed.
Okay.
Okay, we'll set
All
that
right.
up.
Because there's been, as you know, numerous students that benefit from this, and my family personally from this, so.
It's a citywide
whatever
issue.
we can do to resolve this.
It's a citywide issue, you know.
Okay, well, it
We
needs
have
to
a,
be
we have a
resolved, sure.
registered speaker. Do you
Yeah,
want-
okay.
Wendy Blue?
She's not here. Not here, okay. Sorry, she was registered to speak. Are you all set?
Yeah, I just want, again, this needs to be done. I think the way it's been handled right now isn't, it just doesn't represent the way the city should be run and the way that we expect it to be run over there. Thank you.
Councilor Conway?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with Mr. Leahy on this particular motion. And also what you just said, it is a citywide situation. That particular media center, the Colleen Cregan Media Center, that's been in existence since 1997. So for over almost 20 years, we've been graduating students that have received an incredible education in that particular area, and I certainly want to see that up and running and fully running, and so that, again, I applaud Mr. Leahy for putting this on, and I hope that that you, Mr. Mayor, sitting down with the appropriate officials from the school department can work this out.
That will be put on the floor of the school committee. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, Councilor Mercia?
And I will say to Mr. Mayor that the Cregan family, in memory of their daughter, and they have contributed tremendously to this production center, it would be a shame.
Money and spirit.
Yeah, I know, so we should do our part to
Yes.
make it whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, 11.5, Councilor Cirillo, request city manager instruct proper department provide a report to the council regarding the age and condition of the playground equipment at the Hubby Playground on Aiken Street in Centerville. Second by Councilor Elliott.
Hi, yes.
Cirillo.
I've been to the Hubby Playground, and I just saw that the equipment seemed very old. So I wanted an update for possibly getting some new updated equipment in the playground, because it's a really great spot, and there are many kids that show up there to play. So thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hovey Park is an 8.5 acre of land area with a merry-go-round, seesaws, old swings and slides, climbing gym with perhaps the oldest equipment in any of the parks throughout the city. So Councilor Cirillo is absolutely right. It's very old and antiquated. It was put there 31 years ago in around 1987. So the motion is correct. And I checked, and there are no funds available, because I tried to see if there were. So perhaps maybe in the next line of funding, we could put in a request to the CDBG funding for that particular park, considering she's right in observing the equipment is very old. So that's a good motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, next by Councilor Cirillo, request nonprofit organization subcommittee meet with the various nonprofit groups based in Lowell in order to explore initiatives designed to increase public awareness and to educate residents regarding the various programs available through the nonprofit organizations Lowell. Second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo?
Yes, we now have the nonprofit subcommittee, and I think it's time that we do something with the nonprofits to get them more involved and see if maybe we can have a day for maybe, you know, the CBA or you know, just any one of the many nonprofits that we have in the city, and have just, oh, today's the day for, you know, this group or this nonprofit. Just I want to start brainstorming on how we can have people in the city get to know what our nonprofits do in a more engaging way. Thank you.
And you've also talked, I believe, about coordinating that effort with the city, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a good motion, though. I mean, you have in the managers who want to partner, a mutual partnership with the nonprofit, and you see this coming Thursday, actually tomorrow, actually, she's going to take the brand that she's started, Lowell Listen, and in this case, it's on our next chief. So it's a good motion, and we can take it further, a step further by saying maybe we ought to have a nonprofit day where all the nonprofit in the city will come and displays, you know, their product or the service that they provide, and hosted by the city of Lowell at the JFK Plaza. So it's a great idea. Like it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say that's an excellent suggestion by Councilor Noon, and one that probably the subcommittee, when they meet with the nonprofit, should take up. Maybe that's something that that we can do.
Something needed. Thank you. Next, your motion was taken, Mr. Conway. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Elliott.
No, I think it's a good motion too, and there is an alliance in the city that I'm sure the nonprofit alliance would invite them in as a starting point but that doesn't include them all. So I think it makes sense to get a you know, a database or a list of nonprofits in the city and get them together. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, what's available to people, and even for our own purposes, there's so many services available. So
We're going to have an intern in the mayor's office, and I think just what you're asking for, but perhaps, like, as councilors, different data that you require. I think this is something that we could do, and I think that would be worthwhile, especially all the organizations who represents them, where locations, but we can do that in other areas too, so consider that. Mr. Conway, your motion was already taken. Right. Next, by Councilor Elliott, no, that was taken. All set there. Councilor Kennedy, request Educational Partnership Subcommittee host a presentation regarding Project Learn. Councilor Kennedy.
Seconded.
A second by Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the motion speaks for itself. However, if there's no objection, I would like to amend the motion to include requesting that the Arts and Culture Subcommittee host a presentation by Peter Lally regarding the Lowell Memorial Auditorium.
Okay, let me just think. We're all set.
Seconded.
Yeah. We're all yes. Any further discussion on that? Any information you want to seek from that? The purpose of bringing these two groups together? Could you explain a little more?
Well, there are two different subcommittees that would host two different presentations. The presentations have been at the request of the entities involved, so it's so that they can make a request before, make a presentation.
I think they're two important areas. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. Next, Councilor Mercy, request city manager contact DPW commissioner to investigate. No, we've done that. Councilor Mercy, request city manager contact Mass Highway Department in order to install "Welcome to Lowell" sign on Middlesex Street, entering from the town of Chelmsford. Need a second by Councilor Leahy.
Thank you.
Councilor Mercy, that enthusiastic support.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some time ago, there was some construction work around there, and the sign came down and never went back up. And people noticed the slightest little things, like the R on the early garage. They noticed that, and they noticed that the sign never went up. And so if we could put the "Welcome to Lowell" sign on Middlesex Street, entering from the town of Chelmsford, and we could contact John Cooper, because he does excellent work with the state in notifying the sign people in the state, because we've dealt with him on the on a sign on a particular state area, and he got that sign from the state very well, so thank you very much.
All right. Councilor Milazzo?
Thank you. I'm going to support this motion, but I just want to say that I think it should be on the incoming lane driving into the city, because if you go to Andover Street, the Welcome to Lowell sign is on the left-hand side coming in. So it really should, the Andover Street sign should be on the right-hand side as you come into Welcome to Lowell, but it's actually, I believe it's on the left-hand side. So just to make sure it's on the right lane coming in. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, maybe we can at the same time notify the state as to how they should put it on the right side of the street. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next by Councilor Mercy, request city manager contacts Mass State Highway Department to inspect and ensure trees are safe along section of Route 495 that abut Crystal Street off of Woburn Street. A second by Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have a vendetta with the Mass State Highway Department, but I do have another concern, as was brought to my attention by neighbors that live on Crystal Street. Crystal Street is off of Woburn Street in the South Lowell section of the city. They abut 495 highway, and a lot of the trees that are right on the cusp of the property owners on Crystal Street are very nervous about branches that keep falling down, and they want them to the highway department to be aware of how they're nervous about these trees. So if we could have someone go to the neighbors on Crystal Street and check that out for them, please. That'd be good. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I think that's a good motion, Councilor Mercia. Madam Manager, there are many streets in the city that have very large trees with huge overhanging branches, and we know how many people have been killed in the Greater Lowell area for a falling branch or what have you. Do we have anybody that, in a sense, can drive through some of these streets and just check them out? I mean, just sometimes the eye observation alone can do it.
Yeah, I'm sure we can have someone go through and check them out. It may require, obviously, contracting for some of the larger trimming, and especially because some of the storm damage that's been done over this year in particular. There's been huge limbs that have been damaged. So we can look into that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right. Next by Councilor Mercy, request city manager explore possible repair improvements to the bridge roadway. Oh, we've done that. Okay. Next, Councilor Mercy, request city manager have DPW commission apply for Domino Pizza grant of $5,000 to aid in road repair. Second by Councilor Elliott. Go ahead, Councilor Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Leahy likes Domino's Pizza. Last Friday, I read an article in The Sun as to the Domino Pizza offering to help fix potholes in towns and cities across the country. Domino's was offering as much as $5,000 to municipalities for road repairs as part of the chain's Paving for Pizza campaign. The company has taken up the crusade against potholes because bumpy roads make for bad pizza when they deliver to customers. So I felt that every dollar counts when it comes to fixing city roads, and the $5,000 would come in handy. I know probably it doesn't seem like much, but it is when we have to repair things in the city. We have 3 Domino's Pizza places in Lowell. We have one on Mammoth Road, Chelmsford Street, Bridge Street, so I feel we qualify for some money. We need all the help we can get when companies are offering money, so please let's apply for the grant. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm hungry already.
It's hard to follow that.
Counselor, the Domino's talk is making everybody up here starve.
We have some of that in the back room? Okay. Councilor Noon, request city manager to have DPW install appropriate lighting at Foothill Park. Councilor Noon?
Seconded.
Second by Councilor Cirillo.
Mr. Mayor, the motion speaks for itself.
Okay. Next, by Councilor Noon, request city manager to have Lowell Police Department provide update regarding the status of Lowell Citizens Police Academy.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that in the past year, the Lowell Police Department do have the Citizen Academy. That's an 8-week program where you do an orientation or pathway into how police work, ranging from K9 to detective work. From there, you not only educated citizens who want to learn, but also you, at point, able to get volunteers to house or to help substation precinct during a weekend or at night. And so this is an opportunity for citizens to learn how police work, and you know, maybe something good will come out of it in terms of partnership and working together. So, and that's why I put it there, because I know the city has it before, or had it before. I'm not sure if they continue it. So I'm just asking the update on that, where we at on.
Thank you. Next by Councilor Noon, request city manager have traffic engineer review traffic patterns at the intersections of Westford and Wilder Street, as well as Middlesex and Wilder Street, and report on whether the installation of traffic signals are appropriate at these locations. And second by Councilor Kennedy. Mr. Noon.
So Mayor, you know, people complain about traffic. I guess they complain about traffic in this area. They just want to see whether or not, you know, traffic light is better than stop sign. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. You know, having engineer department look into it, whether or not that work. If not, so at least the public understand why, you know, we choose one form of stop traffic light, stop sign versus traffic stop or traffic light. So, and that's why I put it out there so that maybe engineer can take a look at it and report back, so I can tell the people who ask this question. Thanks.
Councilor Elliott.
This is a good motion. I go through both of these intersections every day, and they're starting to back up. And it's a result of the university traffic, quite frankly. But, you know, I know signals are very expensive, but I think it's good to look into and see if there's a, you know, maybe it's a flashing yellow, but it gets very congested. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Next by motion by Councilor Noon and myself, Mayor Samaras, request city manager instruct superintendent of police and all involved to identify any problematic areas in the city and plan to address the situation. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would want to, you know, after we receive report on this, that dive into a subcommittee on public safety and to see what plan we have for not only addressing this issue, but also proactive in terms of us, you know, activity for young people in the city that in relation with our police department. Hotspot area, I know that, you know, police department, the senior officers and or the interim chief know where the hotspot, and what we need to know is plan, and we as a city, as a council, work together with police and provide them resources so they can, you know, and making sure that even like a couple weeks ago, that's not it's not a recurrent event. We have a great police department, and we just need to work with them and help them to succeed in intervene this before it happens and provide opportunity other than, you know, the incident happened. Thank you.
Madam Manager, I mean, what we're also looking for with the safety committee is one, you know, if the police can work with the neighborhood groups to identify problem areas, and also themselves by designing, you know, what are the problem areas, and bring those up for discussion. So any support we can give the police, we'll know why we're giving that support. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Next is by Noon and Samaras. Again, requires city manager provide an update regarding staffing at the police precinct in the city, particularly during nights and weekends. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion on 11/16, actually, you know, with what we do in the success of the Citizen Police Academy certainly will help address some of the shortfall that we have in terms of precinct. Should be able to engage them, not just educate them, but also from there get them to volunteers in some of the substation or sub-precinct during night or weekend, even just a couple hours, and so that we have somebody there all the time in some of these sub-precinct that is happen to be hotspot area. Way that, so residents know that if I go to the substation, somebody will be there. It doesn't have to be a uniform officers because he or she will be on the road already patrol the area. So having somebody there certainly can convey the message directly to the police, to the officer on patrol and or to the dispatcher for that matter. So thank you.
Madam Manager, I mean, what we're looking at is when people see a police precinct or something like that, there is an expectation that someone would be there. So I think we need to clarify that. And as Councilor Noon stated, even volunteers or, someone that can make a quick contact because these are in troubled areas. And I think this would be a good way of dealing with that. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on any? Okay, we have announcements. Any announcements? Councilor, Madam Manager?
Oh, just quickly, I did want to announce that tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, I will be hosting a open to the public listening session just to hear from the public what qualities or what they would like to see in the next superintendent of police. We are in the process. That job has been posted, and I've met with many groups, and I'm inviting the public at large to come. It starts at 6 p.m. and will go as long as the residents want to come and be heard.
Where?
Oh, it's at the senior center. I apologize. And one other announcement that I failed to make, and that is to introduce Kara Keefe Mullen as the new Assistant City Manager. Many of you know her. She's a lifelong resident and worked in the Massachusetts Senate for over 10 years. So, Kara. This is her second day. So.
Councilor Noon.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to commend Madam Mayor with what she spoke of, the tomorrow event at the senior center. I heard a lot of great things about, that they're saying that she's heading, the directions that is getting a lot of support from people with the idea that the branding that you're doing. So I just want to commend you on that.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor?
I was just going to welcome Kara as well and reassure that the agendas are never, I think this is a record.
Is this one of the short ones?
I've never seen an 8-page agenda since I've been here.
We made the 10 o'clock, okay. We did that. A motion to adjourn. By Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Kennedy. Thank you.